All rise, please.
Good morning, everyone. Please join me for O Canada, followed by a moment of quiet contemplation. Okay, thank you. Be seated. I'll look for our clerk for roll call, please.
Thank you, Warden. We have all members of council in attendance with a couple of exceptions. Councillor Hamlin sends her regrets with alternate Councillor Jeffrey in attendance. And we have regrets from Councillor Sandu with alternate Councillor Verkuyk in attendance, and you have a quorum. Thank you, Warden.
Thank you. Is there anybody that has to leave early? I know the King's speech is today. I will be done by 11 o'clock, I would assume, and we'll be able to catch that. It's not seen. Oh, yes, Councillor McKellen.
Thank you, Warden. I need to leave just shortly before 12.
Okay. Well, the speech will be over by then. No one else? Perfect. So I'll look for the approval of the agenda. Councillor Dolan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by alternate Councillor Jeffries that agenda for May 27, 2025 meeting of County Council be approved.
Thank you. There was a small change on the posted agenda. We did add a county officer's report, which is the Clearview loan, so it's on the agenda today, just everybody's aware. Any questions on the agenda? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Do I have a disclosure of pecuniary interest by any member of council? If you find yourself in that situation later, please declare it at that time. Presentations and delegations, we have none. So for the consent agenda, Councillor Burkett, please.
Thank you. Good morning. Through you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Norcross, that the Council communications and proclamations May the 13th, 2025 to May the 26th, 2025 have been given due consideration be received.
Any questions on the proclamations? Not seeing any. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And adoption of the council minutes and confirmation of the committee reports. Deputy Warden Coughlin, please.
Good morning, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Locks, that the following council minutes be confirmed and adopted and the committee of the whole reports be confirmed. County Council minutes, May 13th, 2025. Committee of the Whole report, May 13th, 2025. Committee of the Whole confidential report, May 13th, 2025.
Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes or questions? Not seeing any. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Presentations and considerations of the Committee of the Whole reports. Chair Evans, please.
Good morning, Your Worship, and good morning, Council. The motion is that the performance management recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated May 13th, 2025 be approved. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Norcross. Comments? Back to you, Warden.
Any items to be pulled from performance management? Not seeing any, so all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Chair Measures, please.
Good morning, Your Worship. Good morning, Council. Committee of the Whole report for May the 13th, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Brian Smith, that the Human Services recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated May 13, 2025 be approved.
Any items to be pulled from Human Services? Not seeing any, so all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And Corporate Services, Chair Dolan.
Thank you, Warden. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Miskamings that the governance, sorry, wrong one. You can slip it through. That the corporate services recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated May 13th, 2025 be approved, including the confidential items.
Anything to be pulled from the Corporate Services? Not seeing any, so all in favor. That is carried. Thank you. And now the governance with Deputy Warden Coghlan, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Locke, that the Governance Committee recommendations contained therein and the report dated May 20th, 2025 be approved.
Any items to be pulled from governance? Direction given. Councillor Leduc.
Yes, Warden, I'd like to pull the GOV 2025-158.
I'm just looking for, is that 7B? Yeah,
It's the weighted
158,
vote.
yes. Well, that's the whole one, is it? All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll pull that one, so we'll need a motion on the remainder, which is the hybrid. You have one fourth. Which one do you want to deal with, Jonathan?
Through you, Warden, so if there's no questions on the other report, that's the additional option for hybrid council and Committee of the Whole meetings.
Oh, I got a question on that one too, so I guess we'll go ahead. Is it a
Thank you,
question
Warden.
or a separate vote?
Thank you, Warden. I was going to ask a question on the Gov 2025-161, which is the additional options for hybrid.
Yes.
Just to have a question.
Questions? Yes, go ahead.
So I didn't find any mention about the alternate in the policy. I might have missed it. I just wondered how the alternate role is impacted with the hybrid. If the alternate participates remotely, does that count against the 4 instances that are available to the member?
No, they all separate folks. Yeah,
Thank you. That's all I was looking for.
perfect. Any other questions on the hybrid? Not seeing, do you have a motion in first, Jonathan?
Sure, so like I was saying, my recommendation would be to adopt the Governance Committee recommendations with the exception of item 6.1, which is the circumstances for use of a weighted vote in the procedure bylaw, so it is the balance.
Okay. Okay, and we have a mover and a seconder, so all in favor of the rest of the report? That is carried. Thank you. So now, Councillor Leduc, you pulled the first item.
Yes, Warden, I pulled it because Bradford Glenbury certainly can't support options 1 and 2. There's in our consideration, there's nothing wrong with the way the weighted vote is worked out now. When we're speaking to that, it looks like they want to just do it on the budget. But when we're talking about any kind of report that comes to County Council, they all have financial implications of some kind. Whether we're hiring a nurse or building a social services housing complex, there is a financial impact to everybody around this table. So in my thoughts is that there's nothing wrong with the way the weighted vote is. It shows in the report that there's many different forms of the weighted vote, and everybody has a weighted vote. This has worked since '94, and in my opinion, there is nothing wrong with it. And I stress to council that we should leave the weighted vote as is. It's worked well in the past. It's only used on very critical issues, and so I believe that it should stay the same.
So I'm going to not support this report and hope that others don't also. Thank you.
Just a quick question, and sorry, because I was in a sidebar and I apologize. So option 1 and 2 you were fine with?
No,
Not even option 1 or 2?
not, no. Status quo.
All right.
Weighted vote as is.
Any other discussion? Councillor Gordon and then Councillor Dolan.
Thank you. At the risk of just echoing the comments that were just made, I'd like to add the fact that we're here as representatives of many people in our municipalities. The fact that we don't have a 65-member council speaks to the fact that weighted voting and proportional representation is baked into this House. Therefore, to pick and choose when we speak on behalf of all of those residents who we're here to represent doesn't make any sense to me. This proportional representation isn't a switch we turn on and off at will. And this, quite frankly, has never been an issue until it was an issue around council size reduction. I don't believe that tinkering with weighted votes, which equals proportional representation, is something that we have any authority or mandate to do. We are here in the size that we are right now, and potentially smaller in the future, with the power and the voice of all those people behind us. And to choose when the power and voice of all those people is allowed to be used in this House is just wrong, in my opinion. Like, we shouldn't be messing with this at all. Proportional representation is a core tenet of our democracy, and who are we to flip the switch as to when it counts and doesn't count in this House? These are my 2 cents. So I won't be supporting that change either. Status quo in this case works just fine, and we should leave it like that.
Councillor Dolan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would respectfully disagree with the 2 speakers. I do support option 1 and 2. The one piece that I didn't like about the weighted vote before was the fact that you could have a vote, and if you didn't like the way the vote went, then you could ask for another vote and have it weighted. So this option 1 and 2, and the reason that the recommendations hopefully are separated, because I can't support option 7B, but option 1 and 2 I think is fair. It allows any member to call for a recorded vote without it being weighted. So if you just want to let it be known forever and a day that you voted against something or in favor of something, you can just call for that recorded vote and it's not weighted. Then if you wish, you can call for a recorded weighted vote, and there'd be 2 separate things, but then you'd be required to do that prior. You couldn't ask for a second vote. So I think that makes sense. I think it's fair to everyone. And to every county, every upper tier that uses a weighted vote has different rules on when they can use it and when they can't. And if we got to it, I would want to support others as well. I don't think I would support option 3, which is to permit 1 vote per member on votes regarding appointments, because I think that makes sense. We've never used a weighted vote when we were electing a warden or a deputy warden or chairs that I'm aware of since I've been here. So I also support that, along with a couple of other options. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Fryer, and then I do have some suggested motions. Yes, and then Councillor, Van Verkuyt. Thank you. Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Warden. And my comments are generally the same as Councillor Dolan's. I continue to support status quo. To me, it was developed in a compromised situation when it was first established, and I don't see anything wrong with it. But in that spirit of compromise, I can accept option 1 and option 2. I do believe that option 2 will lead to more callings of recorded votes, because of I think it was always established that you could call it immediately after to avoid them being called all the time. But I can't support the option 7B. I do believe that it should be available throughout. Other than I have no problem at all with the appointments if it was established that way. But there will be a severing of them, will there? Or so that we can vote on them separately?
Yes, I have motions to separate them all out, and we kind of prepared for that at governance. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Verkuyt.
Thanks. Yeah, that was my point too. I wanted to make sure that they were all separated because I cannot support 7B. I don't support option 1 or 2, but I cannot support 7B.
Thank you. Any other comments before? Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. It's interesting to hear many of the comments and you know, my friend who spoke first mentioned that, you know, everything we do is financial here, whether we hire a nurse or we do anything else. And he's absolutely right. But it's covered off in the budget. We set the budget, and everything we do after that falls within that budget. So if the weighted vote is allowed with respect to the budget and budgetary items, or should something come up throughout the year that is going to be outside the budget, extra, that would apply. But everything else falls within the budget. So once you've used that weighted vote on the budget, it should be fairly simple after that. I think that you know, I want to commend Jonathan and his team. They put a lot of effort into bringing forth some recommendations and whatnot to the Governance Committee. We spent a good amount of time debating. I think we've come up here with options that are something we should all be able to live with, as Councillor Fryer stated, you know, in the spirit of compromise, so as that we can get through this issue that is very concerning here in the House. I mean, the House is split almost 50-50, 17-15 on this. So I think it's a good compromise, and I would encourage members of the House to support the recommendations. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Warden. I do agree that that we can come to some kind of compromise. But what I have a struggle with, I guess, and I bring this question with respect, is why do we need to have a weighted vote to govern ourselves? And I'm not talking about anything financial, as other members have mentioned, because it does, as Councillor Smith said, falls under the budget. So I've struggled right from the beginning of this, wondering why the need for governing ourselves, and that's the only part of it, and no other part. And I also had a question that would help me understand too, if this, and everyone is going to say it wouldn't happen, but I don't know that my question, I will give the first part, is that when we got the mayor's powers, no one thought that it would come from 169,000 down to where a municipality of 9,000. It just went overnight. Nobody had a say in it or anything. So what would happen if got mayor's power, warden powers, or whatever, for this House? We can't say it wouldn't happen. I just want to know what it would do, because that would cease, I would assume, cease all of the weighted votes that are put here. And it's just a question that I had, and that one that everyone should think about, because we can't say it wouldn't happen. Thank you.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want that responsibility. Okay, we have Councillor Anderson and then Leduc and Corbell, I think. So Councillor Anderson. Oh,
thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to echo the comments from Councillor Smith as well to say to staff, it was a very comprehensive governance report. So I appreciate the research that went into it, because I think it clearly shows what other regions and counties do, and that there are options out there, and we don't need to be stuck in one spot. And it is a option to look at potentially reviewing that during the procedure bylaw review every term, so that we make sure that we're doing what we need to do at this House. I would support all three options that are recommended by the Governance Committee. Having said that, I can say that 7B is probably the most contentious item, and if that doesn't come through to fruition, then I would be wondering how we are looking at these other options that are in the governance report, because I think there are some other one or two that we could look at if that 7B does not happen. And I think I would echo the comments from Councillor McDonald saying that there's an option here where we have the procedural matters as one vote. And I think that would be a compromise on that, so that we're governing ourselves as each member here in the House. Thank you, Your Worship.
Yeah, I do have them separated out. So I'll go from the folks that haven't spoke yet, and then I have a suggested motion. So I'll go to Councillor Corbell and then Measures, and then I will get back to James.
Thank you, Warden. And a very, very in-depth report, to say the least, and the committee did a great job. I guess the piece for me that I find difficult to wrap my head around in respect of what we're trying to accomplish is actually Section 246 of the Municipal Act. When I look at option 2, where we're suggesting that you would have to indicate you wanted a weighted vote prior to the vote being taken, by doing that, we're contravening what the members' rights would be under the Municipal Act to then call for a recorded vote afterwards. So I just trying to wrap my head around how that would be overcome.
I can answer that. By separating them, a recorded vote would not be a weighted vote. So you could still call for a recorded vote after the vote, but a weighted vote you'd have to call for in advance. That's why 1 and 2 were put together as a package.
Well, thank you, Warden. And even when I look at those, separating the two, now we're talking about strictly a weighted vote decision, and everybody votes on it. How do we then, so what you're saying, if I'm gathering it right, is if we don't call for a weighted vote prior to the vote being taken, then the weighted vote portion will not apply to that vote?
Correct.
So if a recorded vote was asked for, then it would still be based on not being weighted?
Correct.
Correct. But if we're talking about a weighted vote situation, how do we exclude that?
Well, once you separate them, like a recorded vote's under the Municipal Act that you can call for one afterwards, especially in the case of well, how many hands went up here, how many didn't, so that's why you're allowed to call the recorded vote. But if you separate the two, a weighted vote, there are no rules governing it, only the rules we put in place. So then we would, and that's what causes the controversy, and that's what we found. You call a vote, oh, I don't like how that went, so I'm going to call another vote with a weighted vote. No, you want a weighted vote, call it prior to. So that was the intention with option 1 and 2. And I'll go to Councillor Measures.
Thank you, Your Worship. For members that are not members of the Governance Committee, I want you to know that it was a very good debate, a good almost 2 hours discussion, and our chair did a great job making sure that everybody had the opportunity to hear all of the points that were brought forward. Again, other members of the House here have thanked our clerk staff for their work to put together a great report, and I'll add to that as well. It was a great report. Obviously, a lot of details to come to where we are. At this point, though, I want to reflect upon one of the comments that it strikes me that we all need to reflect upon. We are members of this House as the County of Simcoe. We each earned the right to be here by being elected in our home municipalities. Under the Act right now, we're here as mayors and deputy mayors. But when we sit here together, we're not mayors and deputy mayors, because the oath of office that you each took, including the warden, to be here indicates that you serve the best interests of the County of Simcoe. So we are all equals here serving the best interests for the people of the County of Simcoe. And Mr. Gordon, Councillor Gordon, your comments about how you feel you need to represent the people from your community, I would comment to you, I represent the people in your community as well as everyone does. We all have impact on each community on every vote we make here. This is not about your community or anybody individually. This is about the entire County of Simcoe. So that's why I think it's important for us to keep that perspective, that our oath of office clearly says that we're here to serve the County of Simcoe. That's what I'm doing. I maybe look at it a little more altruistically. I do appreciate that there can be certainly differences between our individual municipalities, but I think that the important part here is that this House must understand that we are all here together serving for the interests of the county. We're not here serving for the interests of our own individual municipalities. I proudly wear the pin of Clearview Township on my lapel, as each of you probably wear your own municipality's pins, but I also proudly wear the County of Simcoe pin because that's where we are here today, and this is the work that we do. So I look forward to more comments, Your Worship, and I think that we should really take a look at this and understand we're doing this for the greater good. Thank you.
So what governance did is they separated them into different motions. So I'm going to put the first motion on the floor and then I'll come back to you, James, if that's okay. So what I've got is that item GOV 2025-158 dated May 20th, 2025 regarding circumstances for use of the weighted vote in the procedure bylaw be received and that the following options as generally outlined in Gov. 2025-158 be approved. Option 1, to separate the recorded and weighted votes, and option 2, to require a weighted vote to be called upon immediately prior to a vote, and that staff report back with the draft amendments for the procedure bylaw and plan for the approved changes to take effect as part of the ongoing procedure bylaw. So option 1 and 2, and can I move by Councillor Dolan, second by Councillor Anderson. So that's what's on the floor now. Councillor Leduc.
Thank you, Warden, and I just want to go back and refresh a couple of people's minds on some of the things they talked about when it came to that everything is covered under the budget. I want to refresh people that in 2024, Council endorsed $2.5 million over and above the taxation of the 2024 budget to the 2025. We hired 42 new people through that budget. I want to also remind Council that last week, at the last Council meeting, we added $850,000 to a contract that was outside the budget. So when we say that everything is covered under the budget, that's absolutely false. We have to deal with issues throughout the year, and we add to our budget as it goes on. So to just tie us to the budget is false. We deal with financial implications throughout the year. And to take that away from people, that is not the way it should be done. The weighted vote is something that should be stuck. I want to go back to Councillor Measures, and he talked about representing the county, and we're here with our county hat on. I need to ask, where was the county's hat when Springwater gave away 1,800 acres, $11 billion worth of assets, $140 million in taxation that somebody has to pay for? People around this table, where was that county hat on?
Point of order.
Was that county hat here? No, this is all relationship to,
It's all right, we're gonna get back. Option 1 and 2, though, is what I'm looking at. Separating the weighted vote and calling for it prior to the vote.
And again, I can't support the option 1 or 2. I can tell you that, you know what, I understand the concerns about when it comes to option 2 about calling for a weighted vote after the vote has been called. I could actually respect that and say, you know what, that is something I could put in the procedure bylaw, that you call the weighted vote before and live with that. I would say, yes, I can support that option. But I can't support any other option. The weighted vote has to be here. We have to respect the rights of the residents of Simcoe County, and if we're here to do that, then they should all have an equal say when it comes down to financial implications. So I could support not calling a weighted vote after you don't have that right. I get it, but I can't support the rest.
Again, if I may, that's why we need option 1. Option 1 just separates the two so that we can do that, because the Municipal Act says you can call for a recorded vote before.
Can you put that up there, what you read, sir?
Yes, we'll get it up on the screen. So it's option 1 and 2. 1 just separates them, so you can call for a weighted vote or a recorded vote. Well, it'd be a weighted recorded vote or just a recorded vote. And then option 2 says it must be called for a weighted vote prior to the actual vote. And on that topic, Councillor Smith, and we'll get it up on the screen here.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just feel the need to respond to the comments of my friend. He's absolutely correct. In 2024, we did pass those other budget items. But as I said earlier, the weighted vote would apply to any item that changed or pertained to the budget. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to add $840,000 to the budget for an unforeseen cost throughout the year, that would come to council as it always does. And of course, it would be a weighted vote because it's a budgetary item. I don't think it's complicated for us to be able to determine what is a budgetary item or what is an item that has already been included in the budget. They're two distinct different things, obviously. One is over and above, one is not. But 7B allows you to have a weighted vote on anything pertaining to a budgetary item, whether that be an increase in budget, a decrease in budget, or setting the annual budget. Thank you.
So I'm going to we'll get to 7B, just 1 and 2 is what I got in front of us right now, 1 and 2, yes.
And last comment, weighted vote, sir.
Yeah, of course. Like a recorded vote, which is Jerry. Any other discussion on option 1 and 2? That's what's on the floor, when it's used and separating the two. Because all the other options are based on you have to separate them to do any of the other options. Councillor McDonald.
Respectfully, I question why we have these votes and they're weighted votes, just to proving this point. Why don't we just take it straight to our municipalities? Thank you.
Any other comments? So a weighted vote has been called on options 1 and 2.
All right, thank you, Warden. So we'll just take the motion down, but
Warden,
it is,
Just a point of clarity here. They're not separated.
No, option one and two go together. They have to. Because you can't have option two
not
without
separated.
option one. If you don't separate weighted vote from recorded vote.
Why couldn't you have option one as itself, because it's a standalone option where it says, and then the two where you just say you can't have the weighted vote after?
Because I have to have option one to separate the two before you can have option two to say I can't have the vote after, because you're entitled on the Municipal Act to have a recorded vote before or after. That's under the Municipal, a recorded vote. So if I don't separate the two, then we can't have option two. So that's kind of why we had to package them together. Yes, Councillor Verkek.
Yeah, just for clarity, so if you separate recorded and weighted votes, that's one thing, but you still could separate them and call for a weighted vote either before or after a vote. Like there's no, I don't get the logic why they have to be together.
Go ahead, Lynn.
I'm going to try to give it a shot here. So the Municipal Act allows for a vote to be called after the fact. So right now, every time we call a recorded vote, it's weighted. So that allows for a weighted vote to be called after a vote's been taken. So the reason for option 1 and 2 is to allow for two distinct, a recorded vote and a weighted recorded vote. So if a vote goes through, if you call for a vote and you want everybody to know that you voted against that and you want it recorded, you can still call for a recorded vote after the original vote, but it won't be weighted.
But you could still call for a weighted vote after the thing that's not recorded. No?
No.
Why not?
Well, that's option 2. You could in option 1, right? You can't do, if option 1 is defeated, then option 2, 3, 4, they're all off the table. Because if they're not separated, then you can't have the other options. So we combine them together because we could separate them and vote on option 1 first. And if option 1's defeated, well, then they're all gone. So just clarification I'll do now. I think Councillor Cox and then Cabral. All right, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I understand what's being said here about separating them, but to be quite honest with you, I don't know why option 2 just can't be an option all by itself. Simply say that to require a weighted vote to be called only immediately prior to a vote, and everything stays the way it is right now. I don't understand why option 1 has to go first.
I can answer that, because in our procedure right now, recorded vote and weighted votes are the same. And under the Municipal Act, you can always ask for a recorded vote after the vote. If we don't separate them, we can't have any other options. So I've got option 1 and 2 and a recorded vote requested.
okay, thank you, Warden. So the motion is to receive the report, and the vote here is that option 1 and 2 be approved, and that staff would report back with the draft amendments to the procedure bylaw and a plan for the approved changes to take effect. There was a recorded vote called by Councillor Leduc. I'll move in order alphabetically, starting with Councillor Leduc. If you could please indicate yes or no.
Opposed?
Councillor McDonald. In favor? Councillor McClellan.
Opposed.
Councillor Measures.
In favor.
Councillor Miskimins.
In favor.
Councillor Norcross.
In favor.
Councillor Norris.
In favor.
Councillor Prost.
In favor.
Councillor Rawson.
In favor.
Alternate Councillor Verkijk.
Opposed?
Councillor Brian Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Michael Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Snell.
In favor?
Councillor Van Staveren.
In favor.
Councillor Walker.
In favor.
Councillor Anderson.
In favor?
Councillor Bell.
In favor.
Councillor Burkett.
In favor?
Councillor Cabral.
Opposed.
Opposed. Deputy Warden Coughlin.
In favor?
Councillor Cox.
In favor?
Councillor Dolan.
In favor.
Councillor Evans.
In favor.
Counselor Fowler,
In favor.
Counselor Fryer,
In favor?
Counselor Gordon,
In favor.
Counselor Greenlaw,
In favor.
alternate Counselor Jeffrey,
In favor.
Counselor Locks,
In favor.
Counselor LaRose,
In favor.
Counselor Lavoie,
In favor.
and finally, Your Worship.
In favor.
Your Worship, I have a weighted vote of 119 in favor and 26 against. That would carry.
Thank you. And the second recommendation I have that came out of Governance Committee is that the following option is generally outlined in GOV 2025-158 be approved. Option 7B, to require one vote per member on all votes except those regarding the yearly budget. This is the big one. Moved by Councillor Smith. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Measures, all right. So, up for debate. Councillor Gordon, start us off.
Thanks. I'm not going to repeat what I said earlier. Everyone's heard it. I would propose an amendment that to say to require one vote per member on all votes except matters regarding governance. I don't like it tied to yearly budget. I'd rather make it, the intention was, and that's what I committed to when we were talking about the last contentious one, if we don't want it to apply to governance issues, let's lay that out. Everything else is fair game. Right now, this is way too prescriptive, locking it down to budget. I think most of us at the time were in agreement that we just didn't want it on governance matters. So that's what it should say, if we're going to honor the spirit of what we asked for and what the drama that ensued. So that would be my amendment proposal, that we lock it to governance matters and remove the fact that it's bound right now to budget approval.
And that is actually one of the other options. So talking with the clerk, he said then you would vote this down, and that's one of the other options that was on the agenda. So any other comments on 7B? Oh, yes, Councillor Dolan.
Thank you. I want to echo that I appreciate all the work that Jonathan and his team did on this report, particularly all on the jurisdictional review, and that is one of the points. I did vote against this at governance. I'll let you know, and I'm speaking to it now. I'll try to be succinct. I have 3 points. So one is it's undemocratic. So what you're going to set yourself up with is you'll have the majority of the electors who will have a minority of who will be paying a majority of the assessment and will have a minority of the vote. So I see that as an issue. To Councillor Measures' comments about us, the altruistic, we all vote for the county. That is true. We all sit here with our heart at the county. And if that's the case, then why are we even here talking about this? Because it doesn't matter how many votes anybody has. If we're all got the county hat on. My issue is, at home, in my lower tier, if I make decisions unpopular with my electorate, I'm going to be unelected. Here, if the decisions by the majority are not popular by my municipality, they have no way to do anything about it. They can't unelect mayors and deputy mayors from other municipalities. My second is that it's unprecedented. So in the report, in the jurisdictional review, you'll see a number of upper tiers. So every upper tier in Ontario that has an upper tier, and I only did Ontario, I didn't do other provinces and territories, there is some sort of representation equivalent. So in the regions, it's the number of representatives that sit there. You'll often hear about the bickers between Peel, how many seats that Mississauga and Brampton have according to Caledon, and how many seats Oshawa has, and Port Perry only has, Scugog only has 1. But it's all by representation to make it equal. In the county system, it's done by weighted vote. In the very few counties that don't use a weighted vote, the population difference, the number of electors between the smallest and the largest municipality is so close, it's moot. There's a moot point. It wouldn't matter if it was weighted because they're all about the same size within, well, in Halliburton's case, it's less than 5,000 population between the largest and the smaller municipality. So it's not required. So it would be unprecedented in Ontario to move in this direction. And then finally, the issue around the budget, and this is where I see the most issue and contention in this House. As was mentioned earlier, a budget is built throughout the year. It is not done, solely by staff, in the offices here and brought to us. And typically in this House, by the time we get to the end budget vote, it's pretty rubber stamped because we've had our opportunity to do that. And the budget is built based on strategic direction given by this House and by priorities that we give this House. So all of those items help inform staff to bring a budget to this House. So if the representation, if the electors don't see themselves in that budget, it's going to get, and if the only recorded vote, and I would correct Councillor Smith, or I'll ask the clerk to, Councillor Smith said, Councillor Brian Smith said that we could have a weighted vote on anything to do with the budget, and what I understand, it would only be the final budget bill that would be a weighted vote. Is that correct?
Or amendments to the budget.
Okay, so once the yearly budget is proposed. So my point being that if the majority of the electors don't see themselves or don't agree with that budget, it's not going to pass. And then we're back to square one. And like, how long is it going to take? Right now, we kind of work together, find consensus, build the budget, pass the budget. If the voice of the majority is silenced, that final budget bill isn't going to pass. We end up right back to square one, and it could take months to get a budget through, and that hurts everybody because projects then don't move forward, particularly capital projects. So those were my 3 points. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, Councillor Smith and Councillor Fryer.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just, again, I would urge my colleagues in the House to support this. I think it's pretty clear. Anything budgetary would be a weighted vote. And everything we do is budgetary at the end of the day. And so it leaves very, very little out. The argument I'm hearing today, and I've heard it every time we've had this discussion, has often come back to the larger municipalities with more population should have more say. First, let me make it clear that Wasaga Beach is the 4th largest community in the county. So for me, this has nothing to do with population. Where I really struggle here is we all take an oath of office when we enter this House to represent the county of Simcoe. Not the town of Wasaga Beach, not the town of Innisfil, not the town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury, but the county of Simcoe. And with the weighted vote, to me it says that a citizen who may live in Ramera or Clearview, a smaller township, has less voice than someone living in a big city. I've said it here every chance I've had the opportunity. If your concern is that your voice should be larger because you're bigger, then that should be a composition of council issue. The weighted vote, I understand why it was put in place. It was so the composition of council didn't grow. But if our true concern is about representation based by population, then composition of council is what we should be talking about here. Because the weighted vote skews, in many cases, in my opinion, things that we do within this chamber. The way it was being allowed to be used only made that a bigger issue. We've solved that today, but I don't think any citizen in this municipality, if you will, or in the county of Simcoe's voice, whether you live in a large city or a small town, should have any less or any more weight than any other citizen. And I'll look to the province and I'll look to the federal government. You know, they've adjusted ridings to make populations closer in size. But there are many times where that is not the case. And it's never perfect. Councillor Dolan just talked about other regions where the difference between one municipality to the other might be 5,000. And so it's not an issue. Well, 5,000 is 5,000. That's 5,000 people's vote based on this argument that isn't getting their say or being treated fairly. Federally and provincially, once you're elected and you get into the House, you have one vote. There's no weight on anything. And so my biggest struggle here is that basically what I hear is that we are saying if you live in a small municipality, you have less of a voice than someone who lives in a large municipality. And that, Your Worship, in my opinion, is undemocratic. Thank you.
I have Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Warden, and I'm just going to add briefly to my previous comments, and I do appreciate the efforts of the Clerk Department in putting together this extensive report, and that included, in regards to 7B, some reasoning that I took to heart when I considered my non-support for it. They referred to the fact that the most practical option to be narrowly targeted for ease and simplicity was 7B. But then immediately a reason that it's important to note that this option has the greatest potential to impact the voting rights of members as it encompasses. And Councillor Dolan's already elaborated on that, so I'm not going to. But that's the one that I gave the most weight to, and the reason that I could not support 7B. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Deputy Warden, Councillor Measures, and Councillor McDonald. And then Corbell. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'll save my comments for a different place in line. I just wanted to make sure that the House is clear that what we're voting on. There's been comments today that this provision that we are voting on would prevent the weighted vote from occurring on anything but the final budget vote. It's also been stated today that it can be used on anything that pertains to budget. So I'm going to turn to the clerk and make sure that this House is extremely clear that we are voting today that if this passes, a weighted vote can only be used when?
Jonathan.
Thank you, Warden. I'll try my best here to be clear. So 7B explains on page 8 of the report that it's one vote per member, or in other words, the weighted vote only applies to the yearly budget approval. So that's just the consideration of the budget. So when we, in a typical year like this year, the budget's tabled in late October, the draft budget comes before this House. It would be from that point up until the final vote on the approval. That's what's contemplated in 7B. So it's not all financial matters. It's just the consideration of the yearly budget. And I'll just say, 1 and 2 have been supported today. Those are largely procedural in nature. Options 3 through 7A are proposing one vote per member on certain types of votes. And so you can, support 3, 4, any combination of 3 through 7A. 7B fully encompasses all of those options, 3 through 7A, and limits it to just the yearly budget approval. So if 7B isn't supported, there still are these other options that Council today could work with. I just wanted to make that point clear as well. Thanks.
Yeah, I have them here as a backup. Okay, I've got a supplementary, Deputy?
And again, so just reiterating, if something comes up so we have a budget process. If anything comes up 2 weeks from now, a month ago, a weighted vote could not apply, even if there's a significant financial implication to the county. It's only during the budget process that a weighted vote can be used.
A clarification on that, and then I will go to the other folks. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Your Worship. So perhaps I totally misunderstood the meeting, because my understanding coming out of this meeting, I was pretty darn clear that it was on the main budget and any other votes throughout the year that would affect that budget. That's what was pretty clear to me. It was anything budgetary, not just the vote on the main budget or the final budget for the year. So if I've misunderstood this, I'd look to other members of the governance, but if I've misunderstood this, it's my apologies, but I don't think I did. I was pretty clear coming out of there that it was anything to do with the budget and anything that would affect the budget throughout the
Any
year.
amendments to the budget, I understood
Absolutely.
were part of it as well, Jonathan. So just, yes, the budget, but any amendments to that budget would also,
As part of the deliberation process on that.
no, but once the budget's passed, if 6 months later we had to do an amendment to the budget, it too would be subject, is the way we understood it at governance, so.
I concur. Thank you.
So maybe we'd have to tweak that motion a bit, because that was our understanding on the main budget. But then if you wanted to amend that budget, it also would require a weighted vote. Deputy Warden.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I do apologize. As chair of the committee, we were trying to be extremely clear. The budget process, once the budget has been passed, amendments during the budget process were to be included, obviously. Anything outside the budget process, so once the budget has been finalized, the weighted vote no longer applies in our procedural bylaw. I just want to make sure that Councillor Smith and myself are voting on the same thing. Because my understanding is that the weighted vote is to only, after this vote happens today, if should it pass, the weighted vote only applies to the budget process, not budgeted items, because as other people, Councillor Leduc has said, every single decision we make has a financial impact. So if it's just based on whether it has a financial impact or not, the weighted vote's going to apply to every decision we make. So I'm not trying to confuse things. I'm not trying to make it, but I want to make sure that this House is voting on a clear process that will be in our procedural bylaw. Should this pass, the weighted vote can only apply during the budget process, and amendments during that budget process can have a weighted vote. But after the budget has passed for the year, there is no more weighted vote in this House. And I'm going to look to the clerk for clarification.
Jonathan, and then I've got you next, Doug.
Through you, Warden, that's the intention of how that option was written, correct, Deputy Warden? There was some discussion about what Haliburton County does. Haliburton County was used as sort of an example where they only use weighted votes for decisions involving financial matters. And they defined financial matters, so they talked about approval of the yearly budget and all these sort of other scenarios, temporary and long-term borrowing, acquisition of real property, execution of collective agreements. So there was some discussion about that, but if you'll read in the report too, we believe defining and interpreting financial matters generally would be a very difficult task to do. So it was tried within this option to articulate exactly what you've said, that it's from when the draft budget is tabled by staff, any amendments in the consideration of that draft budget up into and including the final approval of that yearly budget, the weighted vote is permitted under this option.
Councillor Measures.
Okay, thank you very much. It seems like we're reliving our meeting again. I must say, while we've been throwing some wonderful accolades towards our clerk's department and our chair of the governance committee, I think that there was a part of the conversation that was missed. And I think it needs to be clear, because there were examples brought up at our governance meeting in the past where an additional staff hire was brought forward by senior management, and the senior staff asked for an additional staff hire, which was outside of the budget process. And this House considered it and passed it and added that to the budget. That was a change to the budget after the budget had been approved. That was an example that was brought up. Another one was a change to the budget in the cost of a project where the costs exceeded budgeted items, but we were able to move monies through our reserve funding, and it had to come to council for a decision to do so, and council supported making that change. That's a change to the budget. And so those two items that were discussed that come to mind, Mr. Smith sort of tweaked me there when we were thinking about how this went down, that these were the examples we discussed at our governance meeting. And I think using the word amendment to the budget may have confused people at our governance meeting, because amendments do happen during the budget process. And the deputy warden's correct. Absolutely, amendments should be able to be voted on with weighted vote during the budget process. I believe Mr. Smith and myself and others that were at the meeting were looking at the amendments that may come during the year after the budget process has been done. So if we have an amendment to the budget, I think that it's respectable to ask for recorded and weighted votes for those type of amendments. That's where I was coming from at the meeting, and I think that's what I supported when we talked about how the 7B process would work. That's my interpretation, Your Worship, and to the Deputy Warden.
Your chair, go ahead, Deputy Warden.
Thank you. And I'll just ask for clarification from Chair Measures. What meeting were those brought up in? Because those were not brought up in during the conversation at our last, those examples were not brought forward.
Oh, they sure were.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Mr. Smith? Yes?
No,
Thank you.
they were, but that's
Ms.
okay.
Cox
And
was
that's where the
attending.
misunderstanding took place, that we, the committee and even myself understood any amendments to the budget could be a weighted vote regardless of when it came throughout the year. I have, oh, hang on. I could take an amendment to that effect if that's what I'm hearing from the House. So let me finish. I got a lot of cards here, and then, holy crap, yeah, and let me finish the ones I got on the list, and then we look if you want to see that amendment added to it. Councillor McDonald, you were next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just back to Councillor Brian Smith's comments about the population. I think that in 1994, we were closer in population to each of the municipalities that were in this House. We're not now, but is that fair to have different votes? Because we do not get to choose. It is places to grow, other governments that will tell us how many population we're going to grow to. So I think that is why I believe that there's one vote, because we do not get any say in how many we're going to get. We can put it out there, but we know that the government is going to tell you where the places to grow are. So if we keep having municipalities that keep growing, and then there are some that stay at 10,000, 15,000, and now we got them up to 60,000, 100,000, 150,000. How is that in fairness? I think this way to vote in 1994 was perfect because we had smaller, we had numbers that were a little bit more the same. We are not the same anymore, but we have the same. How I always look at it is each individual taxpayer. I look at their taxpayer. I don't look at them as a whole. Each taxpayer is paying a tax and should say have not a vote, but their say should matter. But this way, when we have places to grow, it's never going to be like that. So that's why I will stick with what I've always said, is that the weighted vote does not work fairly at this point.
So here's what I'm going to do. Do you have that amendment ready, Jonathan? And I'm going to see if the mover and the second, can I do it as an amendment, or can I have the mover and the seconder agree? So we're going to put this amendment, if you can put it up for us, Jonathan. And it's saying any adjustments to the budget is what it is. So not only the budget, but any. Yeah, okay, I'm getting you on the list. I'm just trying to clean it up to what everybody understood it was. Well, sorry, what some of us understood it was. So hang on. LLN. I'm just waiting. And then I'll look to the clerk whether you need a separate vote on the amendment or whether it can be just included in the motion. As soon as it gets there, Jonathan. Okay, Jonathan.
So through you, Warden, if there's consent of the House and the mover and seconder, which are Councillor Brian Smith and it was seconded by Councillor Measures, It's require one vote per member on all votes except those regarding the yearly budget approval or any subsequent matter that includes an addition or amendment to the budget throughout the year.
You're fine with that, mover?
Yes, I can live with that, Your Worship.
Seconder?
I'm fine with that. Thank you very much,
Deputy
Mr.
Ward.
Clerk.
And thank you, and I apologize to the House for being that person today. That completely changes the intent of the 7B. I was fully prepared to support something that looked like that, but wouldn't that just be then exactly what removing what Councillor Gordon suggested earlier, that everything except for governance can have a weighted vote? Like, to me, anybody can argue that anything that we do in this House has a financial component attached to it. So doesn't that just permit having...
Only if you're altering the budget. If it's once the budget's agreed upon with a weighted vote, that's the budget for the year. If you want to amend that budget again, then that's what that says. If you're going to amend the budget, then it can be a weighted vote again.
Throughout the year. My apologies
If
to
you're
your worship.
amending the budget, only if you're amending the budget.
So if we're adding an ambulance, we're adding a nurse, we're adding a
That
position...
wasn't included in the original budget.
That was not included in the
Right.
original budget, a weighted vote can apply.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, that's a clarification that, yeah.
And just for clarity, that was completely, what I just said was completely opposite to what the clerk formalized.
Right, so would
7
you like a
minutes ago.
separate vote on the motion then, is what you're saying? Yep. Yeah, so what I'm looking, are you challenging my judgment now? You would like a separate vote on the amendment?
Oh, no, not at all, because
All
there's
right.
going to be weighted votes and recorded votes. I just want to make sure that every person in this House has a clear understanding, and we're all voting on the same thing, because this, what's up here, is completely different than what was just confirmed by yourself and by our clerk 7 minutes ago.
Correct,
So completely different intent.
correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Dolan, just because we've changed it, and then I'm going to go around to my list again.
Thank you very much. I think that this option would, I think everybody needs to add 2 hours to their county council agenda timeline, because there'll be an argument every single thing that comes forward, whether or not that's going to affect the budget. And the reason that this was not what we approved, or what the majority, me not included, approved at governance, was because of that concern. That Halliburton's concern was that at every moment they'd be arguing about whether the financial impact of that. If this doesn't pass, I'm well prepared to move option 3, option 5, option 6. Option 6 to permit one vote to change council composition, because that's what started this whole thing in the first place. I believe what Councillor McDonald said about governance and governing ourselves shouldn't be an issue, but I think that everything else in this House, particularly the financial items, need to have one. Each elector should have the same weight. Every person in this that lives in Simcoe County should have the same vote that is equal to each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Corbell.
Warden, thank you, but I'm out.
All right. Councillor Verkijk.
Yeah, 2 points. To say that only financial matters are important, that other matters that don't need a weighted vote because they're not important, or actually it's the way this was originally written. Once you pass a budget, why do you even meet? Because you can just let staff work with the budget that you've approved. So I think every vote's important. The second thing is our democracy in Canada is based on representation by population. So yes, our members of parliament don't have exactly the same population, but they try their best to come as close as possible, and they've been doing that since Confederation. And so we have in my riding, East Gwillimbury, Bradford, West Gwillimbury, and Newtek. So our MP has one vote, but he's representing an equal, somewhat equal amount as everyone else. So if you wanted to have everyone have one vote here on county council, then you really should have a ward system. And so you should have like Tiny and Midland combined, and Bradford West Granbury is one ward, so that all the populations of every member sitting here is equal. Then maybe you would have more of a county hat on. But so if you don't do a weighted vote on everything, then you really have to look at the whole thing and do away with representation by municipality, but have representation by a ward system.
Okay, Councillor Miskimans?
Thank you, through you, Warden. Just for the House, currently, we can use a weighted vote at any time with the budget stuff. So nothing's really changing on this. And, you know, with due respect, I think saying that we need to add more time to our council meetings, I think is a little bit of fear mongering. I can't remember, I know I've only been in here for 2.5 years, but I don't remember a weighted vote being used on the budget or any in-year budget amendment. So really, this makes no difference. It's what we have now. And all we're doing is now separating it, the weighted vote out. This is what we currently have. So for those that wanted status quo, this is a status quo item. We currently can do it. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Councillor McKellen.
Thank you, Warden. Really quick, I very much agree with what the comments that Councillor Dolan has made. Proportional representation is the cornerstone of democracy in Canada. And to say, I heard a member say, well, the smaller municipalities have less of a voice. They don't. The reason that there is weighted votes is to equalize an unequal population, right? Because there's more population in the south than it is in the north. That's the point of the weighted vote, is to equal it out. So I said this the first time, and I'll say it again. If everyone wants to be equal, then New Tech's tax bills should be equal too. And we should equal those all out between the 16-member municipalities, because the fact that representation by population is in jeopardy here, I find absolutely wild, and it's completely blowing my mind, and I cannot believe we're having this conversation. To be perfectly honest, no one had a mandate to do this, and where someone from a smaller municipality said they'll have less of a voice. You won't have less of a voice. That's the whole point of weighted votes. I've heard a few members say, well, we can't grow as fast as we want to grow. Okay, well, the point is that you haven't grown. So you don't get representation for people who are not in your municipality. So whether you want to grow or not has no bearing on proportional representation and the weighted vote, because the fact of the matter is the people aren't there. So we have to represent people as equally as possible. I don't know if anyone in this room, I assume you have, but I'm not sure, have been through a ward boundary in their lower tier. But there is not a mayor or a deputy mayor, I believe, in this room that would put 500 people in Ward 1 and 7,000 people in Ward 2. You wouldn't do it. So why would you do it here? Thank you.
Actually, we had to fix ours. We had, 4,000 in one and only 1,000 in another. Councillor Cox.
I totally agree with what Councillor Brian Smith and Measures have said. And as far as what Councillor Minismin said, I've been here 21 years. Weighted votes were never an issue. We all were on the same page with it. My concern is that when it goes to 16, it's a whole different story than 32, and I've said it before. You now will have 16 people who can figure it out that if they call a weighted vote, then they can win by their numbers, and that leaves the smaller municipalities out. Now we have 2 votes, and there's more people, and it just isn't right to go down to 16 and leave the control for someone who can figure mathematically how we can win by putting our hand up. I totally agree. I have my county hat on. There's been years. I mean, I remember being here in 2000, and they said, I'd say, I was new. We didn't even have orientation then. You just walked in. And I said, wait a minute, what about a county road out, towards Big Chute? When's that going to get done? Oh, you'll be lucky if it gets done by 2024. I mean, okay, I guess that's the way it goes. We all have to work together and we all do our thing. There was never any, I want this, I don't like this, I'm going, I don't want that, I'm doing this. We all work together. My fear is the 16. And my fear also is the change of the political platforms in this day and age and what is going to happen. Thank you.
Okay, hoping to wrap this up shortly here, so I'll go to Councillor Fryer, and I think I saw the Deputy Warden and Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Warden. And again, just to add to my comments from before briefly, I appreciate the efforts of Deputy Warden Coughlin to bring clarity to this, because I certainly, when I read it, it talked about the beginning of budget being in October and the annual budget process. So I certainly thought it only applied to that particular window. With the clarity that's been given, I still can't support it for the reasons I've already cited. And if anything, I find that the clarity has taken away the ease and simplicity aspect of what the reasoning was in the report. So I continue not to support this.
Thank you. Deputy Warden.
Thank you, Your Worship. And if, with your indulgence, if the clerk can put the amendment back on the screen. Just so I'm clear, this is status quo, so we are voting to simply change the wording in our procedural bylaw, because this right here that says a weighted vote applies to anything that can have a financial impact to the corporation.
No.
No?
No. Budget and any amendments to the budget.
So only during that window, not
No,
throughout the...
any amendments throughout the year to the budget. When you have to amend the budget, it can have. It's not required to have a weighted vote. Somebody can ask for a weighted vote. We just did a budget amendment not too long ago, the ones that was talked about, $800,000 for a road project that went over budget. We had to amend the budget. You could ask for a weighted vote. However, if it's within budget that's been agreed upon,
no weighted vote.
It doesn't come to a vote. There's nothing to vote on. Like if you're buying a bus that was in the budget, there's no recorded vote. It's in the budget.
So property acquisition that was, as long as it's within the budget, there's no weighted say?
If we're adjusting the budget, but I'm not sure how that would be. Jonathan, look for clarification. Trevor, want to help us out in that one? Because we have money in the budget for property acquisitions.
Through your worship, yes, we do.
I got more hands again. So much for calling the vote. Councillors, are you okay? No.
I apologize the frustration in this, Your Worship. However, this changes things significantly and in many different ways from many members of this House. I'm not trying to belabor something. I'm trying to make sure that when I do vote on something, it's an informed vote. And as to right now, I don't know when a weighted vote can apply and when it doesn't, because this says the budget throughout the year. So opportunities that arise, anything, for example, if we're receiving a grant for $100 million, that's going to change the budget. That changes our operating. So I'm just looking for clarity.
Trevor, if we're receiving a grant that's not in the budget, you could use a weighted vote, I guess, if you didn't want the grant.
Through you, Your Worship, yes. We can identify whenever there are any changes that would be beyond the budget. So it could go up or it could go down. Most often, we're looking at additions, so those are easy to identify, but there could be some instances where we have a grant and we would be able to put money into reserve. And going back to the other purchase of property or things like that, there are reserve funds. So where we are being directed to use reserve funds, that would be a change to the budget. So that would be identified.
Right.
Thank you.
The question is, as long as you are able to identify when it can be used and when it cannot be. Okay, so, yes, no, I'll move, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think it's important just to respond to some of the comments that have been made here. Councillor McDonald raised, I think, one of the most important points of the day, and that is the growth plans that is dictated to communities and where and how communities grow. The city of Barrie is a prime example within the county of Simcoe for that. the city of Barrie is going to continue to grow, and it's going to grow exponentially, and it's going to grow, rapidly, because it is now a very strong urban area that supports the county of Simcoe. And so the province will look at this and say, here's where more growth needs to take place, just like more growth will take place in Wasaga Beach versus, and forgive me, Your Worship, for use the example again, but Ramera. And when it comes to the weighted vote, that's why it's so vitally important. The citizens in smaller communities, pardon me, have no say on their growth. And to simply say, well, they're small because they haven't grown, so that's kind of their fault. No, it has nothing to do with those citizens. I'm sure that if small town Ontario could have water and sewer and be able to grow faster and the infrastructure required and could afford it because they were able to grow, because in many cases the province has been clear over the years, no, you can't grow. That means their voice is worth less. And, I also hear several times again today that, dollars and cents. Well, yes, dollars and cents are important, but $1 in the pocket of someone living in small town Ontario versus a larger city is just as important, in many cases more important to that individual than to someone maybe in the large city who makes $120,000 a year versus the best wage you can make in small town Ontario might be $50,000 a year. And so by, saying the weighted vote gives equalization, I couldn't be further from accurate in my opinion. Again, I go back to the province and the feds. Once elected, you have one vote. And if your concern is that you have 100,000 people more in your town or city than the next town or city, and therefore we should have a bigger say, then the argument is at the composition of council. Having a weighted vote is in my opinion, with all due respect, the lazy person's way of solving the problem. Every single individual in this county should have equal say, and equal say being through their vote. And their vote in this case is through each of the 2 representatives that were elected in their community where they had their say by equal representation, knowing full well they would send those 2 people here to what they believe would be an equal vote. And then I'll get back to, if I may, if you'll indulge me, Your Worship, to this question. Again, if I misunderstood it, I apologize to this House, but I think the majority of the people on that governance committee, and we had 2 visitors there, understood it the way I did. And the intent, this says the intent, once the main budget is made for the year, staff are fully aware and they do an excellent job at working within that budget. We don't every week or every 2 weeks sit in this House and approve small items within that budget that's already been approved. That's not how it works. Gosh, we would be here for days every 2 weeks. But if something needs to adjust that budget and increase, it's still a weighted vote. And so if dollars and cents, can I say that because I've heard it here on several occasions today, if it's truly about dollars and cents, this solves the problem and it's a fair compromise. And then to my colleague, Councillor Cox, this, what she says makes total sense. This may have worked in the day, and Councillor McDonald as well, and they've been here. I don't know, they must have been 12 when they got on council, but they've been here a while. And it did work in the day because maybe the numbers were closer. But governments change policies and procedures all the time because times change. And once we go from 32 members, if we go from 32 members to 16, we can argue both ways till the cows come home, but I strongly feel it's easier to convince one person than it is to convince 2 or 4 or 6 or 8. And so the less amount of people in this House, the easier it is for the weighted vote to be misused, quite frankly. And I say misused because I have seen this year in this House, when a vote was called on a couple of occasions, and every member voted, and the vote went one way, and immediately after, it was called for a weighted vote to change that vote, and that is undemocratic. Thank you, Your Worship.
A few things I'll clarify before I move on. Yeah, when the municipalities don't write the check to Simcoe County. We have a Simcoe County tax rate. It is the same. It doesn't matter where you live. The municipalities simply collect the taxes on behalf of the county so that we don't have to create a Treasury Department to do that. So it's one tax rate across Simcoe County. The whole reason we can even discuss this issue is the fact of why we could have a weighted vote or not have one at all, is what's a little different here to any board you might be appointed to, is you take an oath when you come to Simcoe County to work for all the citizens. It's part of the oath. You take one at your local municipality, but then you take another one when you come here, that you work on behalf of all the citizens. And that's what's, I think, we sometimes forget, that we've taken an oath here to this House to work for everybody. I work for the taxpayers in Clearview. I work for the taxpayers in Essa. I work for the taxpayers in Innisfil, Wasaga Beach. I've taken an oath to do that. And that's something we have to remember when we're at this table. And it's why we're allowed to move the weighted vote around, or else it would be strictly vote by population. But there is one county tax rate, and we represent everybody when you take that oath. And I think we need to remember that. So I had Councillor McKellen. Or has it been long enough? It's okay. Councillor Gordon and Councillor Bell. And
Thank you. Good discussion, and again, I'm try not to parrot back what I've heard other councillors state that I support. I think the key here is that, you know, we can't create a ward system in the county. That doesn't, how would people, anyway, we all know that can't work. The comparison that, you know, proportional representation is served, the way it's served provincially and federally is because there's ridings. And the ridings try to equalize out the representation. Clearly, we don't have that in our township. I'm one of the smalls, right? So this isn't, I'm arguing against, you know, any case that can be made that, oh, that's the bigs taking over the smalls. It's not the case. The fact that weighted votes exist, that's what gives everybody the voice on county issues. If we were to remove weighted votes as being suggested entirely, that you know, should go the way of the dodo, then we've really robbed the municipalities of their proportional representation. It's absurd to even suggest that we become some bloated 90-person governance in place of weighted votes. That's just absolutely ridiculous. And if a member wants to bring that forward as a council composition change, good luck. But weighted votes exist for the reason that they exist, and that's to provide a reasonable sized governance that does actually give everybody one, you know, in theory, one voice and one vote through the people who they elect as their mayors and deputy mayors. So this whole thing feels weird that we're even talking about doing away with it. You know, we're working ourselves into knots to try and put this up on the screen, and then who's the arbiter of whether it touches, you know, budget? Are we going to argue that amongst ourselves too? Like every single time? It's ridiculous. I remember clearly when we were having the heated, passionate debates about council size reduction, which is what drove all this. I committed then, as I think others did, that we would happily entertain a discussion about when the weighted vote would be used in the future at governance. Even though I didn't really want to see it changed, happy to have that conversation. I remain, you know, open-minded about it. But the intention was to really have it removed from governance issues, and everything else remains the same. So governance, again, just if we pick the option that just talks about removing weighted votes from governance, now we don't have to try and figure out every time, you know, does this apply, does it not apply? I don't know why we're going down this rabbit hole. Either you support the concept that weighted voting, we're content as a House to remove it from governance issues, and on everything else it's fair game, as it should be, because we do represent municipalities of different size with a fixed number of representatives, which is why weighted votes exist. Then let's just either defeat this thing or change it right now so that it says governance only and call the question and just be done with it. If people still can't get that out of their minds and they're tied in, well, I could support this if we didn't shrink, and you know, then let's just defer this until we've actually heard back from the triple majority and we find out whether or not we actually are going to shrink our size. Because to make a decision now while it's still out in the wind, you know, and people are really torn, I could support it if, why don't we just defer this until past the date when we're going to find out whether we have 9 councils that support the reduction that we voted for here, whether you liked it or not, we voted for it here. And if it happens, fair enough. Then we'll have the discussion framed around the real constitution of this House in next term. So I don't want to derail conversation by forcing a deferral motion, but I want to put that out there that maybe that'll make life a little easier on all of us if we just deferred this for a few more weeks until we know the outcome.
I guess the reason it's here is because some of the local municipalities are waiting to see which way this goes before they vote on the triple majority. So that's why it's here. That's why we hurried it through governance. I have one more speaker and then I'm going to call the vote. We've been around the table. I have Councillor Bell. Okay, Councillor McDonald and Dolan, you wanted a recorded vote. So Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you. A couple things. I'm going to start off by saying that I was, by Councillor Gordon, a little bit offended. I don't think it's a code of conduct. We don't say that other council members' comments are ridiculous, just to start with and get that out of the way. I think we have to be respectful of everybody and their opinions in this House. That's how we move forward with the House in a democratic way. Second, I think this is a lot of fear-mongering. I think in my time in 2.5 years, we've had weighted vote called 3 times. 2 of the times were whether we should use a weighted vote or not. So I think that we're making too much out of this. I think it is very clear the control is about the money. And if you have control of the money by having the weighted vote, I don't see what the argument is. I see we're dropping to 16, which is what the majority of the larger municipalities wanted. We're conceding to that. Everybody's conceded to that. We used the weighted vote we got here. It's pretty clear. I think it is time to vote, and I think we just move forward with this and stop letting fear drive us into further and further tailspins.
Bring us home, Councillor McDonald, and then I'll call the vote.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think that many of us from the beginning have said take it off governance, but others said that, okay, we'll do that, but only if we have this amendment on it. But we are very clear that we wanted it off governance, not to governance. We have 32 professionals that come here every meeting and do the best they can for each and every person that lives in the county of Simcoe. So I don't think that we lost anything on that, and I'm glad that Councillor Gordon brought that back up again, because that was from day one. I've stayed steady on everything I've said from the time that I was on governance for the last term to now, and I still stick with it to take it off governance, because we're governing one another. We're adults. We know what is expected of us, and we'll do the right thing. Thank you.
Okay, recorded vote requested?
I have
Yes.
I have a recorded vote requested, and if it doesn't pass, I have a recommendation that talks about taking it off governance. Thank you.
And I'll let you read it. All right. Vote's called. Councillor Dolan.
All right. Thank you, Warden. This is a recorded vote called on option 7B as amended to require 1 vote per member on all votes except those regarding yearly budget approval or any subsequent matter that includes an addition or amendment to the budget throughout the year. The recorded vote was called by Councillor Dolan. We'll start with Councillor Dolan going through alphabetically. If you could please indicate yes or no. Councillor Dolan.
Opposed.
Councillor Evans.
Opposed.
Councillor Fowler.
Opposed.
Councillor Fryer.
Opposed.
Councillor Gordon.
Opposed.
Councillor Greenlaw.
In favor.
Alternate Councillor Jeffrey.
Opposed.
Councillor Laux.
Opposed.
Councillor LaRose.
In favor.
Councillor Lavoie.
In favor.
Councillor Leduc.
Opposed.
Councillor McDonald.
In favor.
Councillor McClellan.
Opposed.
Councillor Measures.
In favor.
Councillor Miskimins.
In favor.
Councillor Norcross.
Opposed.
Councillor Norris.
In favor.
Councillor Prost.
In favor.
Councillor Rawson.
In favor.
Alternate Councillor Verkuyk.
Opposed.
Councillor Brian Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Michael Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Snell.
In favor.
Councillor Van Staveren.
In favor.
Councillor Walker.
Opposed.
Councillor Anderson.
In favor?
Councillor Bell.
In favor.
Councillor Burkett.
In favor.
Councillor Cabral.
Opposed.
Deputy Warden Coughlin.
Opposed?
Councillor Cox.
In favor?
And finally, Your Worship.
In favor?
Warden, I have a weighted vote of 65 in favor and 80 against. That's defeated.
Councillor Dolan, I believe you have an amendment, and I believe it's that one.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a seconder, but I'll read it anyway. That the following options are generally outlined in item GOV 2025-158 be approved. Option 3, to permit 1 vote per member on votes regarding appointments. Option 5, to permit 1 vote per member where the procedural bylaw required 2/3 majority. And option 6, to permit 1 vote per member on a bylaw to change council composition, and that staff report back with draft amendments to the procedural bylaw and a plan for the approved changes to take effect as part of the ongoing procedural bylaw review. I have a seconder, which is Councillor Fryer, and just one comment. People are going to ask, where's option 4? The reason I didn't include option 4, and I'd be willing to if the clerk tells me that there's no risk, but option 4 is changes to the procedural bylaw. So by saying option 4 has no, you can change the procedural bylaw without a weighted vote, means somebody could say, we want no more weighted votes in the procedural bylaw, and we're right back where we started today. So that's the reason I omitted that, but every other governance option I included in here.
On those options? Councillor Gordon.
I think that's a lovely compromise, and that's more in the spirit of what we talked about originally before it morphed into what was just defeated.
Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate the explanation from Chair Dolan, but I would say option 4 is a governance matter, and we've discussed around this table today considerably that governance matters, and from what I've heard from many individuals, should be included within that structure. So I would ask the mover and seconder if they would consider adding option 4 to that motion.
Could I just ask to the clerk? So I'm okay with procedural matters in the procedural bylaw. My only issue would be that the first meeting, it would be do away with the weighted vote as part. So would that be possible to change in the procedural bylaw?
No stress today, John.
I think, through you, Warden, option 4 contemplates any changes to the procedure bylaw. So I think it's appropriate to just leave it at that for the time being, unless there's something specific a member's looking for.
I like the options that are on the floor. If we can pass that, any new amendments, I would table them if somebody.
Vote on 4 separately.
Yeah, we can vote on 4 separately afterwards. Because there was quite an agreement at the governance committee, and I think the deputy warden will agree that these 3 made sense. Any other comments on these 3 motions? Councillor Leduc.
Yeah, thank you, Warden. And I can't support this. I mean, this again is taking away the rights of voters. This, you know, I don't know why we're here doing this, taking the democratic rights of voters away. Everybody should have the equal right. I listened to the arguments a while ago. I heard somebody say that somebody further on a farm or whatever should have greater rights than somebody in an urban center. That to me doesn't make sense. Everybody deserves a right to have their say. I don't care who you are. And this is just taking the democratic rights of people away in our county, and I can't support this. It doesn't make sense to do that. So that's my position.
The one exception, which is in the municipal act, there is no weighted vote when you're appointing a warden. It's 1 vote per member. However, we've mirrored that, and we do the same with our chairs and our vice chairs and our deputy warden, that we do 1 vote per member, which is what option 3 says. It's kind of what we're doing now. We're just saying all other committees and boards, 1 vote per member. Any other comments? So I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? 1 opposed, 2 opposed. Okay, that is carried. Anything else? Councillor Grabel.
Thanks, Warden. Just a question on item number 6 there. When would this actually take effect? Because does item number 6 there actually open it back up?
No, we've already
reversion?
had the vote.
Okay, thank you.
It's for the future, and I will remind Councillor that vote downsize carried 17-15, so it did carry by a majority anyways, but it would be for future votes on governance. With that, if there's no other motions, then I will move on to, in my agenda, to presentation and consideration of county officers' report. So this is our loan, so I will look for a mover and a seconder that item CO 2025-170 dated May 27th, 2025 regarding a request from the Township of Clearview for the county's financial support for Klondike Park Water Infrastructure Project be received, and that a loan agreement substantively in the form attached as Schedule 1, subject to any minor revisions negotiated with the Township of Clearview and approved by the General Manager of Corporate Performance and the Director of Legal Services be approved, and that the Warden and the County Clerk be authorized to sign the agreement and the necessary legal documents to execute the loan. Moved by Councillor Measures, second by Councillor Fowler. On the item, questions, comments? All in favor? That is carried. Opposed, if any? Not seeing any. Thank you. Motions of which notice has been given, we have none. Notices of motions, we have none. Closed session, none. Consideration of bills, Councillor Norcross.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, moved by myself, second by Councillor Burkett, that bills number 712925 and 713025 be enacted as bylaws of the County of Simcoe. Thank you.
On the bylaws, questions or comments? All in favor? That is carried. So announcements. In honor of Accessibility Week on the 20th and the 20th anniversary of the Accessibility for Ontario's Disability Act, the county was pleased to host a paramedic medalist originally from Wasaga Beach, Leanne Taylor. This event will take place at 1 p.m. today. We may make it out in time. In the council chambers following the committee of the whole meeting, and members are welcome to stay and listen to this fascinating discussion. The event is open to the public and staff. Any other announcements? Yes, Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to advise the House that the town of Collingwood has put my name forward to run for the FCM Board of Directors. And if there's anyone here that is attending or speaking to their colleagues in the meantime who could give me the support, I would really appreciate it. And I'm always happy to answer any questions on my worthiness. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will be there. If any councillors going to FCM could pop me an email so I know who all is in attendance, and we'll try and get together. And so any other announcements? Councillor Fryer.
I will not be able to attend FCM, so I'm just going to say how much I support Councillor Jeffrey in her efforts and really appreciate it on behalf of Collingwood Council and County Council as well, as an alternate.
We'll get a campaign team together while we're there. Councillor Dolan.
Thank you. I'll definitely spread the word, Councillor, among my FCM colleagues, but I'm not able to attend. I did want to thank the Warden for allowing me to attend Toromont Remanufacturing, the grand opening in Bradford. It was really an exciting event and wonderful to welcome them to the County of Simcoe. And I just want to say that while I was there, I met some of my neighbors who work there. So there really is no boundaries in Simcoe County, and a rising tide floats all boats, and a lot of my neighbors are employed in that manufacturing facility. The other item I wanted to point out to everyone is there is a free webinar next Tuesday at, I think it's 11 or 11:30. It's put on by Learners, a law firm in Toronto, and it's on strong mayor powers. I'm going to be one of the panelists, and it's free to register if anybody would like to join on. It's 1 hour long.
Okay, any other announcements? Not seeing any. Okay, then I will look that the May 27, 2025 meeting of the County Council be adjourned at, confirmatory bylaw. Yeah, I guess we better ratify everything. Councillor Norcross.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, the amount of time that we went through it, I'm glad we're going to ratify everything. So that bill number, moved by myself, second by Councillor Lebois, that bill number 7131-25 be enacted as a bylaw of the County of Simcoe. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor? That is carried. Yeah, that officially closes the meeting. So now I'll look that the May 27, 2025 meeting of County Council be adjourned at 10:39 until Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. Moved by Councillor Pross, second by Councillor McDonald. All in favor? That is carried. So we'll reconvene for committee of the whole 10 minutes and get everybody in here. Thank you.
All rise, please.
Get everybody to take your seats, please. Okay, I'll look to my clerk. I'll call the meeting to order and then look for my clerk for roll call, please.
Thank you, Warden. So in addition to those present at County Council, we're joined by the city representatives, Aurelia Councillor Durnford, Aurelia Councillor Fallis, and Aurelia Mayor McIsaac, as well as Barrie Councillor Nagusi and Barrie Councillor Riepma. Barrie Mayor Nuttall is absent today. Thank you. You have your quorum.
Thank you. I'll look for the approval of the agenda. Councillor Dolan, please.
Thank you, Warden. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Verkuyk that the agenda for, alternate Councillor Verkuyk, that the agenda for May 27, 2025 meeting of Committee of the Whole be approved.
Any questions on the agenda? Not seeing any. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Do I have a disclosure of pecuniary interest, any member of council? Certainly, if you find yourself in that situation later, please declare it at that time. Presentations and delegations, yes, I do. I've got Carmen Stumple, who's walking with extra spring in his step today after the announcement the other day. President and CEO of the Aurelia Soldiers Memorial Hospital is here to provide a presentation on behalf of the Simcoe County Alliance. And I welcome the city reps to watch it. But again, you're not members of the Alliance, but certainly enjoy the presentation. Carmen, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, thank you, Warden Clark. It's my pleasure to be here on behalf of the Simcoe County Hospital Alliance. Thank you for having us back today to report on hospital activity and provide an update on a variety of different pressing issues for us. So I'd like to begin by introducing our team. I am well supported by my colleagues in the gallery and also very well supported by Jane Sinclair, who very ably and capably provides support to the County Alliance. We have Mike LaCroix from Collingwood General Marine Hospital, Matthew Lawson from Georgian Bay General Hospital, Gail Hunt from RVH. We have Dr. Paul Woods from Southlake. We have Eric Hanna from Stevenson Memorial, and we have Dr. Nadia Sunderji from Waypoint, who will also be incoming chair of the Hospital Alliance at the completion of this presentation. So what I'd like to do this morning is provide a brief overview of several topics. I will go over some trends in healthcare. We'll talk a little bit about our performance as a system and some of the activity that we have been seeing over time. And again, it's always our pleasure to be here to thank the county for their ongoing support. One of the items which we hear regularly, we hear it in the county deliberations, is around population growth. And relatively recently, there was a study conducted by University of Toronto and the Ontario Hospital Association to look at population growth over the next 20 or so years. And you'll see here in the graph, there is a large divergence. There's a huge disproportionate growth of individuals over the age of 65. And we're looking at 4.6 million individuals in the province of Ontario. So that population growth is due to a number of factors. However, the aging population is certainly one that we see being a large driver. When we look at population demographics, both the increase in population as well as the aging population, and we add the disease trends, we have more individuals with chronic diseases and more chronic diseases per individual. This additive factor in illness creates an increase in health burden. Thirdly, we have several upstream determinant effects. And given where we are today with the economic uncertainty that we see, we know economics and social determinants has a huge impact on the health and well-being of communities. We anticipate there will be future effects on health. So you take all these factors together and you have a compounding impact on the healthcare needs of society. And I want to reiterate having longevity in society and having people able to live with more chronic diseases isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, we should be proud of the fact that we are modern advances in medicine are working in our favor. However, we do need to appreciate the demands that in turn has on the healthcare system as we continue to age and continue to treat diseases in different ways. So how that reflects the activity that we see in our respective hospitals. We took the opportunity, we do this every year, just to get a snapshot of what the activity combined between all the institutions we represent. I'll highlight some of the figures here. This county is well served in the basic general services in hospital care. The births, the surgeries, the ER visits, these are tremendous amounts of work and again serve as the anchor in many of our communities. We are also incredibly well supported in some of the specialized services, and we have cancer and cardiac here as examples. Those are the number of visits that are being seen within all of our hospitals, and again, very well served in these specialized areas. We also want to recognize how much our hospitals contribute to the workforce. So we have now over 13,000 employees, almost 2,200 physicians, and the salaries, excluding the physician salaries, is well over $1 billion per year. So this is a major economic driver, major employer, and if not the largest employer in some of our communities. And I would be remiss if I didn't specifically address our volunteers. We have an incredible volunteer pool, people who choose to be with our hospitals and support our hospitals, and they deserve special mention as well. That performance translates in a variety of different areas of the hospital, and I thought I would provide two examples on behalf of our alliance. I would call this the front door. So this is the activity that we see in the emergency department with ambulance transfers, so our paramedicine program, and we're thrilled to continue to partner with the county on the paramedicine. You will see in the green bars a relatively stable volume of paramedicine referrals to our institutions month after month. That is something we keep a close eye on. I will point out, if you can see at this point here in early 2024, there was a really important initiative with the dedicated offload nursing that the county has supported. This red line is the 90th percentile of wait times, ambulance offload times. This darker line is the mean or the average wait time. These wait times plummeted with the implementation of that program. And again, I want to thank the county for implementing this. This has had a transformative impact on getting those ambulances back on the road where they need to be. And I will also point out in January, February, March, that was one of our worst surge seasons on record. And even with that surge of activity in our emergency departments, we were still better than the last year combined. So that is a great demonstration of outcome. It's a win-win for the hospitals. It's a win-win for the county and the paramedicine group. So thank you for that support. So we talk about the front end in the ambulance, and we all know that the emergency departments in our respective organizations are a reflection of the entire system. And one of our biggest challenges looking ahead is what we describe as alternate level of care, or ALC. These are individuals who no longer need the services of an acute care facility, but do not have a destination or a disposition to another facility yet. It could be home, it could be rehab, it could be long-term care. This is relevant to the county for many reasons. I think the county does a wonderful job within the long-term care sector itself and all the supportive housing. These are both examples of important mechanisms in which we as a system work together to ensure people flow out of our institutions in a timely way. And it's the complexity of that movement of individuals which helps us as a hospital maintain flow, as it's a very high priority for all of us within the hospital sector. And again, this is yet another area of discussion where we partner well, and we also have our concerns going forward where we see ALC challenges and really being able to support individuals in their homes as long as possible becomes a high priority for us. We have to comment on our partnerships, and we work with all the municipalities in different ways. We are all active in Ontario health teams. where we come together with hospitals, primary care, community support services, home and community care, all of us working together to achieve these goals of flow, these goals of health and well-being, and the focus that we see going forwards over the next year or so will be on chronic disease management and how we approach that, the future of how those numbers will be compounding in individuals that need support. There's also a very high focus on primary care, and I think that's also relevant to all the communities. Having access to a family doctor or nurse practitioner primary care team is very, very important to all of our communities, and it's something that the Ontario Health teams will be putting focus. We will be working with the primary care action team under the leadership of Dr. Jane Philpott to ensure that over the next 3 years that everyone who is looking for a primary care provider has access to one. Also acknowledge the work that's happening with the HEART program in terms of substance use and opportunities in terms of treatment, and we continue to look forward to that. This slide here is a reflection. Very busy. I didn't mean this to be an eye test to see if you can read the font size. It's just a reflection of the number of opportunities that we have working together as hospitals. And we feel, given what we see going into the future, our success will be in partnership. And we wanted to highlight just a few of those examples of partnership, from mobile response teams to diagnostic imaging to acute care response. These are all examples of how we work together as a system to ensure that people are getting access to the most appropriate care in the most appropriate place. So when we look at healthcare and all the value and merit it has in our society, we also want to acknowledge the economic impact it serves. Having a top-notch, world-class healthcare system is one of the best economic drivers there are in communities. We know that a healthy community is a productive community. We know that hospital systems, as well as other healthcare providers, as mentioned already, is a large workforce that contributes back to our communities, and highly skilled, which offers lots of opportunity as well. And we want to ensure that, again, as a collection of hospitals, but also as partners in the community, that we are working towards ensuring that health continues to drive a positive economy. So what's next? We thank the county for their support through the capital redevelopment programs and the funding that has been allocated year after year. I believe there's active projects in every one of our institutions, whether it's the introduction of new diagnostic imaging equipment, whether that's advancing planning for major capital redevelopment. There's some really exciting service offerings on the go in partnership, and I want to acknowledge again the support of the county and in the funding of those capital projects. It really does help us. Not only does it provide the necessary funds, but it really shows a show of support to our provincial leaders in terms of the funding that they are providing as well. So with that, I will conclude by a thank you on behalf of all the hospital partners here today. We appreciate the ongoing partnership with the county. We appreciate the support and funding, and we look forward to working with you in years to come. So with that, Warden?
Thank you, Carmen. Any questions, comments? Councillor Dolan.
Thank you, Mr. Stumpo. I had a question about that front door graph and what happened in November of 2022. There was a big dip.
Okay.
Yeah, big dip in visits to the hospital there. Really stands out.
Yes. So that is the number of visits from the paramedicine group. I think there was a recording issue, and I look over to Jane. It was 1 month, yeah.
Jane?
Through you, Madam Chair, during the pandemic, around that time frame, we actually did see a dip in transports to all hospitals. It was unusual. 1 year, we reported an actual decline in calls, and we believe it was related to the pandemic activity. Even though individuals were getting sick and ill, they were hesitant to seek assistance. So we actually, 1 year, we saw quite a significant dip in our calls, call volume, and our transports to hospital.
Thank you, and one follow-up if I could, Warden, and that, or sorry, Mr. Chair, I guess it should be. Oh no, the Warden, sorry. And that is around the offload nurse, which I'm so happy because I know that we had some issues there where ambulances were tied up in emergency rooms for a long time. Anecdotally, I do hear from South Simcoe Police that also they have, when they've got a crisis, a mental health crisis, they are also sitting sometimes in emergency rooms for many hours, and wondered whether the offload nurse and South Simcoe Police actually work together. I did notice that it talked about the CARE pilot with the county partnership with CMHA and Barrie Police and RVH, and there's also with South Simcoe, they have a COAST program, which is the same thing, where they have an ununiformed police officer and a mental health specialist who go and sometimes also prevent hospital visits. But what we're being told is when police officers do enter an emergency room with a patient or a going to be patient, that it can take many, many hours.
So through the warden, I think you're describing two separate but related programs of offload, one being with the ambulance versus the police, and there is a slightly different case mix of patients. So the offload nurse would be more of the medically acute situations which require a skilled nurse typically to accept the transfer from the paramedicine group. For the COAST programs and others, it can be a slightly different group of individuals, whether it's nursing, security, it's a slightly different approach. So there is synergy there for sure, and we use all of our resources in that way to be able to, we love to see ambulances on the road, and we love to see police officers on the road where they need to be serving the community. So, but they do take on slightly different approaches based on the populations they serve.
So Councillor Cox.
Thank you. I just want to thank you for your presentation and thank all the CEOs and members here who are here today about this. And I also wanted to congratulate you on your great news this week for all of us in Simcoe County. I had a question. You talked about ALC, but what is the next biggest increase that you are looking at in healthcare in your hospitals in the future? Like, where do you see the biggest increase and how you may have to change the way things are done or add on?
Okay. Thanks. Go ahead, Carmen. Through the warden. There isn't one single item, and we move around on a lot of topics, and ALC is one where we find has a large number of capacity issues. There's a capacity inequality when we look at needing to move individuals to their next level of care. Other areas, and I'll just name a few, I think the chronic disease management, we see individuals who, with an inability to manage their chronic diseases, whether it's chronic heart disease or lung disease, find themselves visiting the emergency department and being readmitted. Heart and lung are probably the two most common reasons for admission with chronic diseases. We also see the precursors to that, diabetes, et cetera, some of the other chronic illnesses. So having a better team-based approach that starts with primary care so that we're addressing these issues early, but really does involve our consultative services for the heart and lung diseases, having them all work together depending on where individuals are at in their treatment. That has become a large priority for our organizations. And it is the sheer volume of what we're seeing in terms of population and growth. I know from our organization, we are seeing a higher number of higher acuity visits to our emergency department, so people are generally sicker, and I believe that would be true with many of our colleagues as well.
So just supplemental, so does that also indicate the fact that we are lacking physicians? That they would be going due to the fact they don't have a doctor of their own? Because I know that is an indicator for many hospitals, the lack of physicians and physician recruitment.
So with the primary care action team, there's definitely an opportunity there to encourage everyone having access to primary care services. And primary care does a myriad of health services. They are the quarterback, if you will, and can help avoid some of the unnecessary visits for sure. I think having a team around them as well is important, because it's not just about doctors and nurse practitioners, it's having an absolute team, and that is one of the priorities of the primary care action team, and working in concert. One of the items we work on are called clinical pathways, so people have a very clear course or map of where they will be at different stages of the evolution of their illness, so that they know what to anticipate, and it's all about getting ahead of it as best we can.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Snell.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Thank you for the presentation. Around mental health, you know, we can see that obviously it is a crisis. It's increased triple-fold since the pandemic. And I saw some of your stats in terms of some of the growth stuff. I'd love to know over time where you're seeing that trajectory going, and what do you and your team see as an opportunity to advocate for funding, or what is the strategy to help address that across the region?
So mental health is an emerging area. It has been present for some time. Our colleagues can speak to that probably more eloquently than I in terms of our colleagues, Dr. Sunderji at Waypoint. We are seeing the increase. We're seeing the increase in awareness. We're seeing the increase in identification and the increased need for services and support. So we are working together as hospitals to identify how we can identify the right capacity needs as a hospital system, but that's at one extreme. So that's at individuals who may require inpatient stay. We're also looking at how we can invest in some of the community programming, the emergency avoidance services that will prevent people from getting into the hospital system, and again, really focusing that care with the supports in their home or where they're at in their current situation. So that's where a lot of our focus is advocating for those sort of wraparound services that meet the needs. And it's with mental health, it's not just the medical components, it's addressing holistically all the determinants that contribute to that, to those circumstances.
Supplementary, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I think the wraparound services are absolutely essential because, you know, as we know, accessing quality mental health treatment can sometimes be a bit of a meat grinder for families to be able to navigate the process. Do you work together with CNARC and some of those other, you know, third-party operators that are provincially funded to ensure that they're wrapped into your services as well? Because as awesome as Waypoint is and so essential, sometimes it's that grassroots frontline service that youth and families in particular need to access really quickly.
Yes, so we absolutely have different streams of work on all those fronts. The Ontario Health teams really are charged with coordinating and navigating the system, whether it's mental health or other chronic diseases. So we are looking to those in support of primary care. Again, they serve as a quarterback in many of these circumstances. So we do actively engage with our community partners in those wraparound services, recognizing that navigation is still a work in progress. It's nowhere where it needs to be, but we continue to work on that and see that as a priority, especially with the Ontario Health teams.
Yes.
I know, thank you, Warden. And I really appreciate that. And I appreciate all the work that all practitioners in this particular field do. Because you're right, it's constantly evolving, it's constantly changing, it's redefining, it's expanding in its extremeness, and the presenting at different ages. You know, so it's something that's very evolving, I feel. I would love to see as a county councillor that when you come and do this amazing annual report, if we can see year over year what the numbers are in that particular area around the mental health visits in the hospitals. I think that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Leduc.
Yes, thank you, Warden. And I just wanted to comment to Carmen, thank you very much for the presentation. There's a lot of great information in here, and it's great to see that our offloading system is working very well to reduce the time for paramedics to be at the hospital. Just want to, The Alliance has been a great system for us, and we've been a great funding partner, being there with the $3 million a year allocated to that. But I can tell you that all 7 hospitals in our region right now are looking at expansion or new hospital, new sites. And you know, when it boils right down to it, the province says that we have to, as a community, come up with 30% of that funding. So when you look at the cost to fund hospitals, and let's just take around $1 billion to put one hospital up, I mean, you're talking $300 million that we have to come up as a group. So I would ask this House, and I can tell you this House, we have to come up with a strategy and a plan to help support our hospitals. We're going through growth. This county is going to grow exponentially. We're waiting for Scope of 7. We're pretty understanding that Scope of 7 is going to have more impact, more growth involved in that. So to me, we have to support our hospitals with more than just our actual Hospital Alliance funding application. We have to come up with a strategy to help, because we have 7 hospitals out here, and if we just talk about 7 being each $1 billion, $7 billion, you are talking 1.6 or $7 billion in funding that we all have to find. And I think it's time for us to start talking about how we're going to do that as a group. So it's not a big financial impact of one shot. We've got to start putting a strategy together to look at that.
I won't throw you under the bus on
Healthcare is the
that
number one
Stumple.
issue.
Yeah, but I do see Mark nodding at it as something we're going to have to bring forward to this House to have a discussion on. Carmen.
If I may add, thank you very much for the comments. We are working with Jane and looking at the capacity needs through the county to understand exactly what that growth looks like. And you are correct, this region is growing faster, and I think the statistics really demonstrate that, and we need to get ahead and keep pace. And we value the support of the county, and we'd be happy to have those conversations, but part of it is our due diligence through the county, working with them to make sure all these capital projects are working in sync.
Jane, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to note, on the agenda today, 8.1, there's a report on the annual ask from the hospitals for 2024. We've also included an update on this very topic. So we have engaged Ernst & Young consultants to come in and do a long-term planning review. It's fourfold. It will happen over the course of this year. The next step will be consultations with our stakeholder groups. So each of the hospitals will be consulting with county council, et cetera, and intend to bring back at the end of the year some recommendations and points of advocacy for funding, et cetera, because of the longer-term implications for the County of Simcoe and for all of our partner hospitals. Thank you.
Carmen, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Warden. I also would like to ensure that we didn't speak about it in the presentation. There are the appendices. It highlights every hospital, has a highlight of what they've been working on. I think it's critical that you take a look. There's amazing work happening at all facilities, and we're doing our best to ensure that we're growing wisely to serve our community. So please do, if you have an opportunity, to look at the appendices. Thank you.
Perfect. Councillor Brian Smith.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and thank you very much for your presentation to you and all of your colleagues. Thank you for the amazing job that each of you do within our communities. You know, I'm looking at some of the numbers here, and these are numbers that I hope we're going to be sharing publicly more often. And one of the numbers, 203,000 cases of cancer among 7 hospitals, and I compare that to cardiac cases at 18,000. I mean, that number is staggering. It is absolutely staggering, and you know, we look at the amount of visits to our ERs, 7 ERs, 377.5 thousand visits annually. These are really important numbers, Your Worship, that really we need to get out there in the face of the public every day more often, because I don't think the public has any idea of the amount of volume and workload that our 7 hospitals deal with on a daily basis. It's just staggering to me. When I read this report or the presentation, had a look at it, that number jumped out at me so fast. I thought we have to do that. So that's my first comment. The other thing, you know, the county is always a partner with our hospitals, and I think we do a phenomenal job, and we can always do better, and I'm sure we will. But one of the questions I had with respect to the paramedicine program, you know, we just had the Simcoe County Conference, and I attended the presentation there by our paramedics, and I can never praise them enough. They do an amazing job as well. But are you seeing an effect yet at the hospital level from that paramedicine program? Go ahead, Carmen.
So thank you. On the first point, absolutely, and we can take that back to our own individual hospitals and share that information. The cancer statistic is an important one. A lot of the work happening through our regional cancer program, but that's a lot of visits. When you think of the interactions that people have with their cancer center, it's a lot of back and forth, and it's a huge impact, for sure. So we're happy to share that. In terms of the community paramedicine program, it's been in existence for years. I know in our region we are absolutely seeing a difference. We're utilizing them. It's a unique way to have clinical expertise on the ground in the homes to provide some support in some of our more prevalent chronic diseases. And we think that it's a neat addition to the team by including them in, not just in emergency situations, but also that ongoing service. So I don't have statistics at the ready, but I can tell you in our circumstances, I know our emergency department and our family doctors that work with the community paramedicines value the service. So thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. If I may,
Yes,
Your Worship,
supplementary.
The next question is, or point, I guess, is the savings in offload time from these nurses is staggering. And I looked at that chart, of course, the reverse middle finger there in the middle. We'd like to see a lot more of those, but that was very eye-catching. With respect to the offload times, can we do more? And, you know, I'm hearing it in our community from the amount of time now it takes to get an ambulance. I think we're seeing positives from this. Getting those paramedics back on the road. But eventually they can get back on the road quickly, but they end up coming back to the hospital in many cases. And so what would the recommendation be going forward with respect to that program, and how can we improve upon that even more? Because what I'm seeing is, yeah, we're getting people offloaded, but are they still sitting in the hallway waiting at the hospital, although we've got a nurse watching them instead of a paramedic? What more can we do there?
Go ahead, Carmen.
So thank you very much. The offload nurse is an interesting one because it's a shared accountability. So the funding that the county provides for the nurse is one thing, but it really motivates hospitals. And there is a data-driven component. There is a lean improvement part. So we work together to look at the process, not just the individual, but the process behind how that transfer happens, how quickly it can happen. And then it becomes the hospital being able to triage and prioritize and move it through our system. So I do believe there's more we can do, a better analysis of peak times and understanding coverage, because that change in early 2024 was fundamental because it provided access to all hospitals, but we do know that some of the hospitals like RVH has a huge volume of ambulance transfers, and there may be other times or opportunities for different organizations. So that could be one, and the other is process improvement. So really making that commitment. As hospitals, we are now very much engaged in the process of improvement, and it's a win-win for all of us. So we will continue to work on it. Many of these individuals are very acute. We have other services and programs for the lesser acute to offload quickly and into the chairs, that kind of a program, versus having them stay in stretchers. So we have other means for the lower acuity, but the higher acuity ones, those are the ones we want to focus on and make sure they get into the queue as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Carmen. Keep up the great work, and thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Not seeing any. Thank you, Carmen, and thank you to the Simcoe County Hospital Alliance. Great presentation. With that, I will turn it over to Chair Measures for Human Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you for all the work that the Hospital Alliance leadership does to represent our communities. So thank you. All right, Council, we're going to move on with our Human Services category. This is the Human Services consent. There is one item in here in regards to the Paramedic Services Special Event Bicycle Deployment. So if you have any questions about that, GM Sinclair is available. Yes. Do we have a question? Ms. Prost.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm going to declare a conflict of interest on 8.1. I'm an employee of Georgian Bay General Hospital.
All right, thank you. Perhaps
Thank you.
If the clerk could just record that, appreciate that, 8.1. All right, thank you. So we'll move on. Is there any questions in regards to this special events bicycle? All right, then I will look for a mover and seconder to put this on the floor. Mr. Rawson and Mr. Brian Smith, or sorry, Michael Smith, he's over here, Brian's over there, that the following consent items having been given due consideration be received. Seeing nothing further, all those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to item number 6 is Human Services, Partnerships Policy and Business Intelligence. We do have the IRCC grant agreement. GM Fayez Baguette is available here. It's a pretty significant program that it'll extend right through to 2028. GM, do you wish to speak to this recommendation for a moment? Are you good? Okay, go right ahead, please.
Sorry, through you, Chair Measures. Yeah, so this is a renewal of our agreement, our multi-year agreement with the IRCC, federal government. This funds primarily our local immigration partnership. It is a reflection, though, that there's been a change in kind of approach on the funding model where the caps on immigration have changed federally, and therefore the funding has reduced accordingly. However, we're also in the process of a pending application for funding on our asylum seeker and irregular border crossing program, which is a temporary housing program for those who are waiting for final status, which includes a capital application. So while we see a reduction on this one, we anticipate hopefully a positive outcome on the other application, which will again also fund the back end support which the local immigration partnership does provide for those clients. So all in all, should be a balanced out funding, but it is important to flag. Thank you.
Thank you very much, GM. Is there any questions? No, seeing none. I will take a mover and seconder on this motion then. Ms. Gibbons and where are we? Mr. Bell, thank you very much. That's item CCW 2025-100 dated May 27, 2025 regarding a new agreement with Immigration, Refugees, Citizenship Canada for the period of April the 1st, 2025 to March 31st, 2028. Be received, and that the necessary bylaw be presented to authorize the warden and clerk to enter into a contribution agreement to support the activities of the local immigration partnership as generally outlined in item CCW 2025-100. Nothing further? I'll call the motion. All in favor? And that also carries. Thank you. Moving on, council or committee, we now have our long-term care committee of management. June is Seniors Month. Well, that's a pretty exciting thing right there. Just looking around the room for the gray hairs. Let's see. Okay. We're all in there, folks. I know we are. So I do have a recommendation here. GM Sinclair, would you like to speak to the exciting programming that's happening for June is Seniors Month?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is a very exciting month, June. As you know, we serve approximately 1,200 individuals from our 4 locations, plus literally thousands of seniors across the region through our regional programs, including our geriatric mental health and our community paramedicine program. So as you can see contained within the report, each of our 4 sites have many, many activities almost daily throughout the month of June. So we welcome County Council to stop by any of our 4 locations and join the celebrations, gray hair or not. All is welcome. It is an opportunity for us to actually acknowledge and appreciate those who came before us, those who have built our communities. They are very special individuals, and it's a great opportunity for us to acknowledge them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Yes, go ahead, Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, through the chair. I'd just like to take this opportunity to say thank you to Jane and her team through the age-friendly committee, and everything that you do across the county is very much appreciated. I know that when I sit there and all the networking that is done in that committee is mind-blowing. It's like, and the things that are done across in each one of your municipalities that have taken the time to do different things for each of their municipalities. It's sees how well invested they are to the backbone of our communities. And even for us, like they don't get up there really aged when we have to give out certificates, but in one year for 2025, we've had 2 100s. So we're very pleased. So we figure that things that are welcome through the communities that allow the seniors to get out and participate in makes for longevity. So again, thank you so much to your team, and it was a great presentation at the conference the other day. Thank you.
Great comments. Thank you, Councillor. Are there other comments? All right, seeing none, I'm going to pick the two movers and seconders on this one. Councillor Walker and Councillor Leduc. How would that be? Gentlemen, thank you. That's item CCW 2025-155 dated May 27, 2025 regarding June as Seniors Month be received. All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 7.2, there has been an emergency repair to the Sunset Suites elevator update. I think we did hear about that a few weeks ago. GM Sinclair, do you want to add any comments to this report?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just that the repairs have been completed, the elevator's back up and working well, and the amount was just under 42,000 as projected within the report. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions to GM Sinclair about this? Seeing none, is there a mover and seconder, please, on the floor? Mr. Fryer, thank you, and Mr. Fowler, thank you. That item CCW 2025-167 dated May 27, 2025 regarding an emergency repair to Sunset Suites elevator update be received and that the funds for the Sunset Suites elevator repair be transferred from the Sunset Village Replacement Reserve Fund. All right, nothing further. All those in favor? Thank you, that carries. All right. Now back to our Simcoe County Hospital Alliance update. Again, thank you for the Alliance for being here today. GM Sinclair, is there anything further you want to add to this report?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think I captured the inclusion of the long-term capital review that's underway, so we'll continue to keep County Council updated as we continue with that process. Thank you.
Well done. It was a good report. Yes, Councillor Leduc.
Yes, I'm sorry. Just to General Manager Sinclair, what was the date again for this final report to come back to county for the planning?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we anticipate the work will be done in December, so looking at bringing in the new year early, probably January, to County Council for any the results of the review and any recommendations for your consideration.
All right, Councillor Chair Dolan.
Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing that. I just wanted to let the House know that the Ontario Small Urban Municipalities, when they met with the Deputy Premier and the Minister of Health the last 2 times, are advocating that the 10%, I thought it was 10%, but I guess when you figure out all of the furniture and everything, it goes higher than that. But the 10% required to be local, the local share, might be too onerous on smaller municipalities. And her response was to dig her heels in. So her answer to that was local communities have to have skin in the game. If they don't, they'll want to build something bigger and better than what they actually need. And that's her reasoning for that. I also wanted to point out that besides the good news that Aurelia got just this week, I believe it was this week, during budget, the South Lake got $10 million to move to the next phase. It was on page 115 of the budget book. You had to look for it. And RVH got $15 million towards the South Campus to move to the next phase. That'll put us in phase 1.3. So there is some movement in Simcoe County, and we just have to keep the momentum going.
Thank you for the report and the update on that. Appreciate that. Are there other questions to the report in the comments? All right. Oh, there is. Okay. Then I will look for a mover. Mr. Norcross, thank you. Very good. Is there a seconder, please? Alternate to Councillor Jeffries. And the item is that CCW 2025-136 dated May 27, 2025 regarding the Simcoe County Hospital Alliance update be received and that the 2024 capital funding be provided to the Stevenson Memorial Hospital subject to the terms and conditions as outlined within item CCW 2025-136. Nothing further? I'll call the motion. All in favor? Thank you. That carries unanimous. All right. We're going to move to the Simcoe County Housing Corporation meeting. Before we do that, I have just to advise that we had a discussion at our agenda review in regards to the Simcoe County Housing Corporation. There's been a little bit of confusion in the past, so we just want to help clarify it here today for everyone who's on the board, that the board members are the only ones that vote and move second or vote on this board. And so we just want to be clear about that. So the first thing we'll do, though, is that we'll ask for a mover and seconder to move the committee of the whole to convene the meeting of the Simcoe County Housing Board at 11:35. And so a mover and seconder, Mr. Anderson and Ms. Gibbons, thank you, that the committee convene the meeting of the Simcoe County Housing Board. All in favor? Thank you. All right, so just to be clear, we move to the agenda. I'm going to read this out, which has not been normal procedure, but we talked about this at our agenda review. The directors are Warden Basil Clark, County Councillor George Cabral, County Councillor Dan LaRose, myself, County Councillor Doug Measures, and County Councillor Sean Miskimmons, County Councillor Doug Rawson. Also a member is County Councillor Raj Sandhu, who is not present today. County Councillor Brian Smith is, County Councillor Michael Smith is, and additional members are Barrie Mayor Alex Nuttall, Barrie Deputy Mayor Robert Thompson, and Orillia Councillor Jay Follis. And so with the persons that are absent today, Mr. Clerk, just to confirm, their alternates, if they were here, are not voting in today's session. Is that correct, Mr. Clerk?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, just want to be clear. All right, everybody, we're going to move to the agenda then. Item number one is item two is actually the approval of the agenda. I'll need a mover and seconder to approve the agenda for the Housing Corporation, the agenda for May 27, 2025 meeting of the County of Simcoe Housing Corporation Board be approved. Mr. Follis, Mr. Brian Smith, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Disclosure of pecuniary interest or any disclosures of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Seeing none, if anything comes up during the meeting, we'll bring it forward and we'll deal with it at that time. Adoption of previous minutes. The Simcoe County Housing Corporation minutes from October the 22nd. It was a few months ago. I'll need a mover and seconder to put it on the floor. Ms. Gibbons and Rawson, thank you. And that the minutes of the Simcoe County Housing Board, Corporation Board meeting being held on October 22nd, 2024 be confirmed and adopted. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. That carries by membership. Matters for consideration. There is the 2024 fourth quarter report. At this time, I'll look for a mover and seconder to put that on the floor. How about your worship? Thank you. And seconded by another member of the board, Mr. Smith. Okay, we'll go with Mr. Michael Smith again. And that this is that item HCB 2025-122 dated May 27, 2025 regarding the 2024 fourth quarter report be received. Any questions from the report? Seeing none. All those in favor? That carries. Notice of the annual general meeting. So this is quite a lengthy report. I will call for Mr. Cabral to move that, please. And is there a seconder? The warden, thank you. And it says that the annual general meeting of the shareholders of the Simcoe County Housing Corporation will be held on June 24th, 2025, and that the county clerk issue the required notice to the auditor and shareholders of the Simcoe County Housing Corporation, and that the items HCB 2025-123 dated May 27, 2025 be presented to the annual meeting of the shareholders for consideration of the following recommendations. Item 1, that the individuals named in Schedule 1 to item HCB 2025-123 be elected as directors of the Simcoe County Housing Corporation, and that item number 2, Baker Tilly, KDN LLP be appointed as the auditors for the Simcoe County Housing Corporation. Item 3, that the 2024 draft audited financial statements for the Simcoe County Housing Corporation be approved. Item 4, that the actions of the Simcoe County Housing Corporation Board of Directors since the last AGM be ratified. Any questions from the members? Yes, Mr. Follis.
Thanks. Through the chair, just a point of clarification. if we had questions about the actual report itself, would we save that until June, or would we pose that during this meeting? Thanks.
I think you could probably ask a question right now if you like. Mr. Clerk, will you be able to assist on that? Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks. Through the chair, I was curious just about, there's mention of the Blake Street project in Aurelia. Wondered if we might be able to get a bit more information about what that entails and the work that's been done to date. Thanks.
Go ahead there, GM.
Through you, Chair Measures. Sorry, just for a point of clarification, the Blake Street project in Barrie?
Through the chair, perhaps it's because on page 21, it's identified as the Blake Street project in Aurelia. So I'm wondering if maybe there was an error there.
Yeah, that seems like
perhaps it was in Barrie. Okay, maybe that answers my question. Okay, thanks so much.
Thanks. I think that's a typo, yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay, it's good to catch those things. Thanks very much, Mr. Follis. Are there any other questions about the report as presented? Otherwise, we'll see you at the AGM on the 24th. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Other matters for consideration from the board? None? There are no confidential items, and so I can call for the adjournment. And Mr. Michael, God, I keep calling you Brian. Michael Smith and Mr. Cabral will be the mover and seconder for adjournment of the May 27, 2025 Simcoe County Housing Corporation Board. All those in favor? Thank you, board members. For the committee of the whole, we'd like to have a mover and seconder for the committee of the whole to rise and reconvene. So, mover and seconder, Mr. Rawson and Mr. Brian Smith, that the committee of the whole reconvene at 11:41. All those in favor? Thank you. All right. At this time, Your Worship, I'm very happy to say there are no other items from Human Services, but thank you very much for allowing me to chair that portion.
Thank you. I'll go to Chair Dolan for Corporate Services.
Thank you, Warden Clark. So first, we have two consent items. That's 10.1, the update on status of recycling services, and 10.2, the Simcoe County-wide transit service delivery review. Did anyone want to pull either of those items? Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question on 10.1. With the new system, I've been approached by our local food bank indicating that it appears as if they do not have an exemption and they would have to start paying for recycling collection. Is that a fact that they've been excluded?
Jim Elliott, would food banks be considered ICI?
Through the chair, at this point, that's correct.
Okay. Okay, so there is a letter coming to the county asking for county to consider lobbying the province to look for an exemption there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Jim Elliott.
Through the chair, I'd actually like to take an opportunity as well to highlight the number of opportunities we've found ourselves in front of the ministry explaining some of our concerns with this transition, including the ICI sector, which was a big one. We think that this transition is going to leave a lot of recyclable materials at the curbside, probably end up in the garbage stream. Despite our best efforts and support from this council to make those lobbying efforts, we just haven't seen the success of getting the ear of the ministry changed on this front, to the point where they've even acknowledged that that's probably a risk. So we will continue to lobby on that behalf, but we would welcome letters such as that for additional support.
Thank you. Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Chair Dolan, and through you to GM Elliott. And probably the same kind of result as the previous question, but great report and update, but I have to express my disappointment. Unfortunately, the lobbying in regards to small ICI and the fact that the government will not come around with the collection of that. So we did have a question from our local BIA because they're going to be in the same situation. And they were wondering what they could do, if they could assist in any way. would I be best just to advise them the same as what you just said, some sort of letter of support to you? I know that it said in the report that you'd be continuing to do ongoing lobbying, and any other suggestions as to what they could do, certainly I'll take forward to them. Thank you.
GM Elliott?
Through the chair, I would agree that, sending us any information that the BIA might have would be helpful in our lobbying efforts. BIAs and downtowns are a little trickier because you've got that combination of residential units mixed with some commercial units. But absolutely, we will continue to forward our observations as this transition unfolds to the ministry and continue our lobbying efforts.
Thank you. And can I suggest also, Councillor Fryer, that the Association of BIAs maybe wants to get on board as well? I think the more people they hear from, the better. I can substantiate the amount of lobbying that the county has done. I was involved in one of the delegations, I think it was at AMO, when MPP Kanjan was the Minister of the Environment. I guess the only little bit of glimmer of hope is that we have a new Minister of the Environment, Minister McCarthy, and maybe he hasn't heard the pitch yet, so we can keep trying. Any other questions or comments on this item or any of the items on the consent list? Seeing none then, moved by Councillor Walker and seconded by Councillor Fryer, that the following consent items having been given due consideration be received. All those in favor? Any contrary? Seeing none, that is carried. Next is item 11.1, and it's the Notice of Appeal of the Township of Severn Official Plan. Questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, mover and a seconder, please, to put this on the floor. Councillor Cox and Councillor Burkett. The recommendation is that item CCW 2025-138 dated May 27, 2025 regarding an appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal at the Township of Severn Official Plan be received, and that staff and legal counsel be permitted to attend all necessary meetings, complete all required filings, and attend all proceedings regarding the appeal of the Township of Severn Official Plan approval, and that the County Director of Planning, Chief Planner, and/or the County Solicitor be authorized to sign any minutes of settlement on behalf of the County of Simcoe, if required, where such settlement maintains the intent of applicable provincial, county, and township policies, bylaws, and standards. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried unanimously. Next, under engineering, 12.1, we have temporary no parking restrictions on County Road 4, Yonge Street in Innisfil. This is to keep the Rib Fest safe. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor McDonald and Councillor Locks, that the temporary, that item CCW 2025-150 dated May 27, 2025 regarding a temporary no parking restriction along County Road 4 be received, and that a temporary no parking zone be established on County Road 4 as generally outlined in CCW 2025-150, and that the necessary bylaw be presented to amend Consolidated Traffic Bylaw 7098-24. All those in favor? That is carried. Any opposed? Seeing none, that's carried unanimously. So we'll go to solid waste management. Item 13.1 is a modification, upgrade, or relocation of the Matchadash transfer station. Any comments or questions? Councillor Cox.
Yep, through the chair. I spoke yesterday with Rob McCullough, and because I wasn't clear on the virtual Zoom and how we would look after this. And I just think that I would like you to explain it, just in case there are people watching, to understand how we're going to do this to ensure that all residents have are able to attend or put in their concerns. And I really like the idea of what they've discussed. Thank you.
Thank you. Through GM Elliott to Director McCullough.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Thanks for the opportunity to discuss that. We'll be working very closely with our planning department, which has found the virtual town hall type idea to have been quite successful, and we hope to mirror that going forward. I think it's most important to look at who we're going to invite. Obviously, it's Simcoe. It's an open public meeting. Anyone from Simcoe County can attend. We will be putting it on our website. We would be allowing Severn and any other member municipality who wanted to advertise it on their website as well. But we will be doing some focused written invitation to anyone who's within 500 meters of either property of the Matchedash site or the other site that's being talked about. It's called our Medante site on Anderson Line. 500 meters from the property boundary of either of those sites, we'd get a written invitation, and then we'd look at a sort of a serviced area which would impact either one, which would be all of the township of Severn, but a portion of Tay, portion of northern Oro Medante. We would send out through our Recollect, our county waste collection app is run by Recollect. We would send them direct information that we would be holding a meeting and what it was for, when it was. But importantly, so we would have a presentation, maybe 20 to 30-minute presentation explaining the three options that are outlined in the report. And then would have a question and answer period on that. What we intend to do is keep that presentation portion online so that if people wanted to see it but couldn't make the meeting, they'd have the opportunity to. There would be comments back from the public both at the meeting and online following that. And we'd have frequently asked questions sheet that we would be adding to for that. That information would then be brought back to council following that. We're thinking right now if council approves this, the next or committee approves this, the next council approves it as it's set out, that we'd probably be looking sort of mid-July for the date for doing that public meeting, and then keeping it active for 3 to 4 weeks following that before closing down the comments and writing a report to come back to council.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Cox.
Yes, supplemental. And our rationale for a lot of this is there is a large amount of seasonal residents in that area, and we really want them to understand that this move is going to take, like, it will be further for some of them to drive, but we need them to understand what's going on. And the other one we need is that everyone understands that this is not a new dump site. It's a waste transfer station, which in many cases people do get mixed up on. They don't understand. That was a dump site years ago, but it's a waste transfer. And the other question I wanted to ask was, when we're talking about the waste transfer site, we're not doing the composting there, right? Through the chair to Rob.
Director?
To you again, Madam Chair. That's correct. We had originally thought that composting there would make sense. We've been working since the discussion back and forth and agree with your point that ultimately we need more composting in South Simcoe, and that's where we would most like to develop it. We don't see it composting as part of this process at this point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Burkett.
Thank you, through Madam Chair, and I just want to thank GM Elliott and Mr. McCullough. They did meet with us before this report came out to discuss what was going to be in it. I like the public portion where we will have our residents, and I think there's some 3,000. That's what this land or transfer station was first designed for. So I'm looking forward to hear what our residents do have to say, and I just want to thank you both for bringing it to us beforehand. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cox, go ahead.
Sorry, just one more. I had already talked to Mr. McCullough also about a link on our website that people could click on and see the meeting and do their comments. And I just was wondering, now that we've talked about Oro Medani and Tay, that might be something you might want on your websites also. So if someone wanted to, they would go to their own website, because sometimes people forget that it's the county that looks after waste. Thank you very much. And thank you both for listening to us and working with us on this. Thank you.
Thank you. And another really good reason to sign up for the Simcoe Collects app if you don't. It's so helpful to get information. Mover and a seconder for this, please. Moved by Councillor Cox and seconded by Councillor Burkett. that item CCW 2025-109 dated May 27, 2025 regarding modification, upgrade, or relocation of the Matchedash transfer station be received, and that staff pursue public consultation regarding 3 potential solutions to existing shortcomings at the Matchedash transfer station as generally outlined in CCW 2025-109. All those in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? I think that's the shortest we've ever talked about waste. Are there any other matters for consideration for corporate services today? Councillor Duke.
Just in regards to the provincial facilitator, I need to see an update on what's going on with the transfer that we're doing with Springwater. I heard the Springwater transferred some land to, I'm assuming it's Barrie, but just wondered, because we were supposed to be at the table, I'm wondering what the position of the county is in that one. Where are we with that? Because that was quite a significant undertaking. So I'm just wondering, was the county at the table? Because we supported it, that the county would be at the table for these negotiations. So Warden, I'm asking direct maybe to you if you have some kind of comments on that to see where we're at with that, because that's a pretty huge financial impact.
GM Elliott.
Through the chair, the County Simcoe has been an active participant through the Office of the Provincial Land Development Facilitator. We are planning to bring forward a report back to this council in the next meetings or so to identify the implications of any adjustments on the county specifically. So that will happen shortly.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands. Oh, sorry, Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Chair Dolan. And at last week's excellent Simcoe County Day for the councillors and staff, MPP Saunderson touched on the Heritage Committee review. Do we have any update on that as far as how that's progressed? I kind of thought it had gone to the wayside since it's been so long since they met, but we've not heard anything directly.
GM Elliott, can you answer that?
Through the chair, judging by the confusion, I would say we have nothing to update on that. So we can double check on that, but we haven't heard anything officially with respect to that from the province.
Thank you very much, and I'll pass it back to the warden.
Thank you, Chair Dolan, and I'll go to Chair Evans for performance management.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Council. 2 items for consideration under performance management. The first one is legal services, which is the conversion of a staff position within our legal services. Are there any comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Measures, thank you very much. Deputy Warden Coghlan. Item is that item CCW 2025-165 dated May 27th, 2025 regarding conversion of staff position within legal services be received, and that the staff conversion as generally outlined within item CCW 2025-165 be approved. Final comments? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. One other item for consideration is the report of May 20th, 2025, the Audit and Finance Committee. Any comments or questions on this? And I was very thankful to staff for pulling together the municipal funding model. Appreciate that. I know we just talked about that in the last meeting, so great to see that in 2 weeks to come back so quickly. And I think it's a very comprehensive and speaks to the items that we had discussed 2 weeks ago. So, any comments or questions on this? Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Fryer, thank you. And Councillor Snell, thank you very much. The motion is that item CCW 2025, the recommendation, sorry, my bad, I'm reading the wrong, that the recommendations contained within the Audit and Finance Committee report dated May 20th, 2025 be approved. All those in favor? And those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Are there any other items for consideration under performance management? Seeing none, thank you, Warden. I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Chair Evans. Does anybody feel the need to go into the closed to deal with the matter? I'm not seeing any, so then I will read the motion. The direction in camera and the recommendations contained within confidential item CCW 2025-140 dated May 27, 2025, regarding a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land be approved and voted upon within accordance with Section 239(6)B of the Municipal Act. Moved by Councillor Cox, second by Councillor Van Staveren. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And I would look that we now adjourn, that the May 27, 2025 Committee of the Whole be adjourned at 11:59. Moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Fowler. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you.